Chapter 1197. The watery moonlight sprinkled all over the earth. The busy days had given Tan Xiu a brief moment of leisure. He laid on the soft bed, his clothes had just been taken off, and his love was thick. Boom! Suddenly, the whole world seemed to be shaking. The doors and windows were shaking, the lights were shaking, and even the originally stable bed was shaking. Tan Xiu could swear with his fingers that the shaking was definitely not from him and Kong Xia. What's going on? Kong Xia's face was flushed and her eyes shifted to the window. Tang Xiu slightly furrowed his brows. He quickly put on his clothes and appeared by the window in a flash. When he looked outside, he found that a lot of people had appeared in the courtyard under the dim light. Everyone was looking around in a daze and looked around. An earthquake? Tan Xiu furrowed his brows. He could faintly feel that the earth was shaking, which was very similar to an earthquake. Grand Master. Tang Yan silently appeared next to Tan Xiu and called out in a low voice. What happened? Asked Tan Xiu. Why is the earth shaking? Tang Yan shook her head and said, I don't know either. Tang Yan shook her head and said, almost everyone has noticed it. Could it be an earthquake? It shouldn't be. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, it would be a huge disaster otherwise. Having said that, he directly dialed Jin Shi's cell number and asked in a deep voice, where are you? I'm in He Province, Sect Master, answered Jin Shi. I can feel the earthquake in Demonic City. Immediately contact the intel personnel here and tell them to investigate what exactly happened, said Tan Xiu. What? Jin Shi exclaimed and hurriedly said, did you just say that the world is shaking in Demonic City, Sect Master? It's the same here. It's like an earthquake. Tan Xiu fell into silence. The earthquake was felt in the north and also in Demonic City. He suddenly had a bad premonition because he was worried that the earthquake was coming from all over the country. If that was the case, it was very likely that a major incident would happen. I'll investigate it right away, Sect Master. Seeing that Tan Xiu didn't speak, Jin Shi immediately said. Tan Xiu finally said, call the people in charge of every city in the country and ask them about the situation there. Then, report to me as soon as possible. Yes. In just 5 minutes. When Tan Xiu received Jin Shi's call, his whole face turned gloomy because he learned from Jin Shi that the tremors were felt all over China. This indicated that it wasn't an ordinary earthquake, but a great danger shrouded the entire country. Ring, ring, ring. When Tan Xiu grabbed the phone and saw the number displayed on the screen, he was stunned. Chen Xiaohua? Tan Xiu thought for a moment, pressed the answer button and asked, what's the matter? Chen Xiaohua's voice came from the phone. Sect Master, something has happened. What is it? Asked Tan Xiu in a deep voice as his heart kept sinking. Sect Master, you once ordered me to send several experts to stay near the Longquan Mountain in the west to guard the pocket world there, said Chen Xiaohua. I just received a message from there a few minutes ago. It seems like there's been a huge change in the pocket world. Dozens of terrifying beasts have already rushed out of the entrance. Some of them even seem to be rushing toward the periphery of the Longquan Mountain. Once they appear in the periphery of the Longquan Mountain, they will pose a huge threat to the ordinary humans outside. Tan Xiu's expression changed and he asked in a deep voice, did you feel the tremors over there? The tremors are very strong, almost comparable to a magnitude 4 or 5 earthquake, said Chen Xiaohua. Tan Xiu's pupils shrunk. He instantly realized that the source of the tremors in the entire country was probably caused by the Longquan Mountain in the west. Almost without hesitation, he said in a deep voice, I'll rush there at once and order the people there to guard the Longquan Mountain. Don't let any fierce beasts leave the mountain forest, let alone expose them to the ordinary people. Understood, I'll inform them right away. Also, I'll be able to rush to the entrance of the pocket world in the Longquan Mountain in an hour at most, said Chen Xiaohua quickly. Pay attention to your safety. Tan Xiu hung up the phone and turned to look at Kong Xia behind him. Then, he said in a deep voice, I need to leave Shanghai for a while. You stay here and continue your work. Also, pay more attention to the construction of the magnificent Tang Corporation's HQ in Shanghai and tell them to speed it up. If possible, make the engineering team work in 3 shifts to move our company's HQ and factories to Shanghai in the shortest time possible. Alright, I got it. Kong Xia nodded. After leaving the Paradise Manor, Tan Xiao contacted Duanmu Lin as fast as possible. After explaining the situation there, he finally said, I don't know what exactly happened in the pocket world, so I'm rushing there now. Senior Duanmu, you'd better go there yourself if possible and send some people to seal off the entire Longquan Mountain to ensure that the fierce beasts rushing out of the pocket world won't harm the local people. I'll rush there right away, said Duanmu Lin. Also, you should be in Shanghai now, right? I'll send someone to pick you up with a helicopter right away so that you can get there as fast as possible. Alright, replied Tan Xiao. For hours later, Tan Xiao was escorted by a military helicopter and finally arrived in the vicinity of Longquan Mountain after making several stops along the way. Let's go! Tang Yan was the only one following Tan Xiao, but both of them were very strong, so they quickly entered the depths of the mountain range after jumping off the military helicopter. Quickly, Tan Xiao and Tang Yan stopped as a figure appeared in front of them. It was Qin Shaohua, who had arrived ahead of them. At this moment, Qin Shaohua was covered with blood as though he had just rushed out of a pool of blood. There was also a piece of flesh on his shoulder with scales on it, which should be from a fierce beast. How is it? Tan Xiao dashed to Qin Shaohua's front and took out a holy healing medicine from his interspatial ring. He stuffed it into Qin Shaohua's mouth and hurriedly asked. Qin Shaohua swallowed the holy healing pill and shot a grateful look at Tang Xiao. He didn't have the time to fully refine the efficacy of the pill as he hurriedly said, the number of fierce beasts rushing out of the pocket world is getting more and more. I brought more than a dozen people with me, along with the few of us who were originally here, making a total of 16 people. We have killed hundreds of fierce beasts in the past 4 or 5 hours, but they are too scattered and we can't stop them all. However, I've been contacted by the intelligence department and they've confirmed that there are no fierce beasts rushing out of the mountain forest to harm the nearby people. That's great. Tan Xiao nodded and said, I've already notified the State Department. I'm sure a large number of experts will arrive soon. But are there any of our people guarding the entrance to the pocket world now? There are, but not many of them, said Qin Shaohua. There are only some dead people hiding in the dark. If the number of fierce beasts rushing out at once is small, they will immediately kill them. But if the number of fierce beasts rushing out is large and very strong, they will temporarily hide. How long will it take to get there from here? Asked Tan Xiao. 1.5 hours, answered Qin Shaohua. Tan Xiao grabbed Qin Shaohua's shoulder and said, Show me the way, I'll take you there. It would indeed take 1.5 hours for Qin Shaohua to reach the entrance to the pocket world given his speed since his cultivation was only at the golden core stage. But Tan Xiao was extremely fast and it only took him more than 20 minutes to arrive there with Qin Shaohua. Sect Master. 4 black-robed Tang sect disciples with long swords in their hands immediately appeared and called out. Tan Xiao looked at their scarred bodies and took out 4 holy healing medicines to give to them, saying, You've worked hard. What's the situation now? The number of fierce beasts that escaped is 1,160, Sect Master, said one of them respectfully. Some of them are very strong, and the aura they exuded should be comparable to the golden core stage. The strength of the other fierce beasts is very average. A few of them are comparable to the foundation establishment stage, while most of them are only at the qi refining stage. Tan Xiao nodded without a word. Then he looked at Qin Shaohua and said, You guys continue to hunt the fierce beasts. Jin Shi and all the Tang sect members in China will be here soon. Take this interspatial ring and put all the bodies of the fierce beasts you've hunted into it. Qin Shaohua's eyes lit up and he immediately took it excitedly. He had heard that all the Tang sect disciples who received an interspatial ring from Tan Xiao would eventually belong to that disciple. He had been yearning for an interspatial ring in the past, but he never got it because he had never made many contributions. But now, his dream finally came true. Tan Xiao shifted to Tang Yan and said, Let's enter this pocket world. I want to see what's going on inside. No way. Before Tang Yan could reply to Tan Xiao, Qin Shaohua was startled and hurriedly spoke to stop him. What is it? Asked Tan Xiao with a frown. I've entered this pocket world before, Sect Master, said Chen Xiaohua hurriedly. I know that it's very dangerous inside, especially that black dragon. This subordinate can't let you go inside and risk your life, Sect Master. Tan Xiu patted his shoulder and a smile appeared on his handsome face. I understand your intention, but you can rest assured. My current strength is much stronger than before. Even if I'm no match for that black dragon, I can still protect myself. Chen Xiaohua opened his mouth and wanted to speak, but he saw Tan Xiu's eyes gradually turning sharp. He finally swallowed back his words and nodded silently. Tan Xiu looked at the entrance and became vigilant inwardly. While entering, he spoke to Tang'an, who followed him closely. Remember to evacuate immediately if you find something amiss. There are indeed a lot of treasures in many pocket worlds, but they're also very dangerous. I'm really sorry. I've been doing research in the countryside today, so I updated late. Please forgive me, brothers and sisters. There's still a chapter to update later. Chapter 1198. The dark passageway was not man-made but formed naturally. This passageway was very spacious and the air was very fresh. Puff! A sword light flashed and the two fierce beasts were beheaded. A chilling light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he came to the carcasses of the two fierce beasts and slowly said, "It's very strange. The space inside this passage is very stable. It's so stable that it makes one's hair stand on end. These fierce beasts are not the ones on Earth, but a brand new breed. It's just that their strength is very weak. Also, I found something else." "What did you find?" asked Tang'an curiously. "If my guess is correct, we've just stepped into this passage and entered another space," said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. "Take a look at the wall and you'll see the difference." The wall. Tang'an approached the wall and carefully observed it for a while. Then she nodded and said, "This wall is indeed strange, Grandmaster. It's not made of stone or mud, but another special material. If I have to compare it with something, I think it's very similar to concrete. Use your weapon to attack the wall, but remember, don't use your full strength," said Tan Xiu. Tang'an hesitated for a moment before she grabbed a dagger and fiercely stabbed it into the wall in front of her. The dagger was a magic tool that could cut iron like mud and was extremely sharp. However, when the dagger pierced half an inch into the wall, it was stuck. "How is this possible?" Tang'an cried out in alarm. According to her imagination, stabbing the wall with the dagger should be as easy as cutting tofu. But the wall in front of her was nearly as hard as a diamond. To be precise, it was even harder than a diamond. However, it was precisely this kind of hard wall that had a few cracks that were filled with lush green vegetation. Tan Xiu put the two fierce beasts' carcasses into his interspatial ring and said, "I think there's something more interesting inside. Let's go inside first. Hide inside the space barrier immediately if the situation is not right." Just as Tang'an was about to agree, her expression suddenly changed and she exclaimed in horror, "The spatial ability I can use here is 10 times worse than outside, Grandmaster. God, the space barrier here is too strong. It took me a lot of effort to tear a hole in it. I can only hide myself within it. I can no longer bring you into the space barrier." Tan Xiu didn't say anything else and quickly moved towards the other end of the tunnel. When he walked for about 2 kilometers, he saw the light at the end of the tunnel. This place. Tang'an stood beside Tan Xiu and looked at the world in front of her. In front of her was a boundless grassland. There were countless ferocious beasts in groups. She even saw with her own eyes that the size of a few vicious beasts was like a small mountain. Tan Xiu raised his head and looked at the purple sun in the sky. His heart pounded. When he was in the immortal realm, he had seen records of Ziyang. Purple qi comes from the east. Purple qi was luck, the purest energy in the world. Any cultivator who could absorb purple qi would be able to obtain great benefits. Tan Xiu did not expect that this world would be filled with drifting purple qi. Just taking a breath of it made him feel relaxed and carefree, as if he was walking on air. The concentration of spiritual energy here is at least 10 times that of the outside world. Tan Xiu took a deep breath. For a moment, he had the impulse to move the Tang sect on Nine Dragons Island here. It was because cultivating here was definitely better than cultivating on Nine Dragons Island. See. An ear-piercing cry came from the distant horizon. A dazzling golden rock suddenly swooped down from the clouds, instantly grabbing a giant vicious beast on the ground. Then, it soared into the sky once more. As it rushed down, its sharp claws easily tore apart the giant vicious beast's body. Purple blood sprayed out like purple rain. Tan Xiu's pupils shrunk. His figure suddenly turned into a sharp arrow and instantly shot into the distance. His speed was fast to the limit. More than a dozen fierce beasts that were comparable to golden core stage powerhouses in front of him suddenly raised their heads and soared into the sky, pouncing toward him. Get lost! Tan Xiu roared and instantly unleashed his divine sword. The surging sword light was like layers upon layers of surging waves, directly beheading more than a dozen fierce beasts that blocked his way. 10 seconds later, Tan Xiu had already dashed dozens of miles away. As a row of jade bottles flew out of his interspatial ring, Tan Xiu manipulated the purple blood rain that was falling from the sky and poured it into the jade bottles. After smashing more than 200 bottles, he quickly poured one of them into his mouth. Hiss! The surging energy exploded in his abdomen. A scorching heat wave burned off all the hairs on his body, including his hair and the other hairs on his body. Refine! Tan Xiu roared and instantly operated the heavenly art of cosmic genesis to the extreme. As the primal chaos force surged ceaselessly in his meridians, the aura that erupted from his body struck fear into the tens of thousands of fierce beasts in the surroundings, causing them to howl and flee in all directions. With a huge amount of purple chi energy, it flowed through Tan Xiu's limbs and 5 organs. Tan Xiu felt as if he had turned into a man on fire. Although his heart was filled with horror, he could also feel that the planets in his internal universe were all trembling. The huge amount of purple chi energy was refined and transformed, and finally turned into surging primal chaos force that quickly flowed into the planets. 1, 2, 10, 99. A total of 99 celestial bodies began to expand crazily. Given Tan Xiu's previous cultivation speed, it would take at least hundreds of years of hard work to make these 99 celestial bodies expand to the size of more than 10 kilometers in diameter. And this was under the condition that his cultivation speed had become extremely fast. But now, the 99 planets were expanding rapidly. After Tan Xiu felt the benefits of the purple blood rain, he drank the remaining 200 bottles of purple blood, causing them to expand to a diameter of more than a dozen meters. For a whole 7 days, Tan Xiu was like a demon god, standing hundreds of meters in the air, his body emitting a huge aura. In these 7 days, dozens of fierce beasts with cultivation levels comparable to the nascent soul stage came, but when they felt the huge aura from Tan Xiu's expression, they all quietly retreated with fear. Roar! A ferocious dragon roar came from the distant horizon. Tan Xiu, who was deep in cultivation, was also awakened by this dragon roar. My strength? Tan Xiu regained consciousness and felt the strength in his body. His eyes revealed a look of disbelief because he never dreamed that he had broken through to the 9th level of the star heavenly essence, which was also the last level. If he could break through to this level, he would be able to directly enter the 3rd realm of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. The 9th level? Tan Xiu suddenly woke up. Compared to ordinary cultivators, the 9th level of the star heavenly essence was comparable to a great ascension stage cultivator. But if he continued to cultivate and become stronger, he would be comparable to a crossing tribulation stage expert. In addition, once he broke through to the 3rd level, he would have the strength of an ordinary immortal. It's coming! A cold light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. He had clearly heard the dragon roar just now. At this moment, he saw a 100-meter-long black dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws at his direction. The black dragon's body erupted with a surging aura that was simply terrifying. The ferocious beasts within a radius of 100 miles all revealed expressions of fear as they quickly fled in even further directions. A human? A human actually entered this place? The 100-meter-long black dragon had a strange expression on its face as it stared at Tan Xiu. Then it suddenly said, "You're not from this world, nor are you from the outside world. Your soul imprint, no. Where the hell did you come from? You can see through my soul imprint?" asked Tan Xiu with a frown. Not only can I see through your soul imprint, this sage can also see through your strength. The black dragon laughed wildly. It's very strange. You're a dignified human, yet you're actually cultivating the demon race's cultivation art. Interesting. This is really interesting. Furthermore, the demon race's cultivation art you're cultivating is not an ordinary one, but a body refinement branch. Do you want to refine yourself to death, brat? Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and indifferently said, I naturally don't want to die, so I've been cultivating very well. You're not a native creature of this pocket world, are you, Black Dragon? Otherwise, it's impossible for you to speak the human language, especially the Chinese language. Further, you also know the demon race and their cultivation arts. The Black Dragon spurted out a dragon breath and shook his head. This sage is not a native creature of this pocket world, of course. This pocket world has just been born for hundreds of thousands of years, so it's impossible for it to have such an outstanding creature like me. It's just that it took me 100,000 years to transform and finally restored my original form, so I can finally get out of this place. Where are you from? Asked Tan Xiu. The Dragon Realm, of course, answered the Black Dragon. Tan Xiu's expression changed and he said in a deep voice, the Black Dragon clan of the Dragon Realm was expelled by the five-clawed divine dragon from the Dragon Realm because they violated the law of the Dragon Realm. All of them entered the Azura Realm to struggle at death's door. How did you come here? You sound like you've been living here for 100,000 years. Black Dragon's baleful aura surged and he angrily roared, Shut the hell up. My ancestors may have violated the ancestral home, but those damned Imperial Dragon clan found an excuse to drive us out of the Dragon Realm because they were afraid of our innate talent and strength. Also, how do you know the secret history of my Dragon clan? What's your origin, exactly? I'm from the immortal world, a reincarnation, answered Tan Xiu. You can deceive other dragons, but you can't deceive this sage, snorted the Black Dragon. Else, you're a reincarnator from the immortal world. Not only did you not cultivate the cultivation arts of the immortal world, but you also cultivated the cultivation arts of the demon race. That's simply a big joke. Forget it, this sage is about to get out of this place, so I'm too lazy to deal with an ant like you. I'll kill you first and let you taste the human blood I haven't tasted for 100,000 years. Today's second chapter is presented to you. Seeking monthly votes for support. Chapter 1199. Tan Xiu's eyes gleamed with killing intent as he stared fixedly at the 100-meter-long black dragon and coldly said, We have no enmity between us, yet you want to kill me and taste my blood? It seems the legend is right. The Black Dragon clan is the evil dragon clan and should be exterminated. The Black Dragon let out a resonant dragon roar again and wildly laughed. My clan has long been labeled as evil by you humans, immortals, and demons, so why should we still be good dragons? Forget it. This sage may not have spoken to humans for 100,000 years, but I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with a puny ant like you. After saying that, it opened its big mouth and a monstrous black fire swept toward Tan Xiu and arrived in front of Tan Xiu in just a short moment. Damn it, vile creature. An extremely cold voice came from the passage to the pocket world. A violent cold current rushed over and Gu Yin instantly appeared in front of Tan Xiu. She controlled the supreme-grade immortal sword that was as thin as a cicada's wing but extremely powerful. It instantly turned into a 10,000-meter-long sword light and slashed toward the black fire that blotted the sky like a bolt of lightning. An immortal? The black dragon's voice began to tremble, and its eyes, which were the size of several millstones, also revealed a hint of fear. It had been severely injured 100,000 years ago, and after a full 100,000 years of recuperation, it had barely recovered some of its strength, but it was still less than 100th of its peak. Its current strength was at most comparable to an ordinary immortal who had just ascended to the immortal world. However, it could keenly sense that this woman who suddenly appeared in front of it was definitely not an ordinary immortal. The 10,000-meter-long sword light split the sea of fire in front of it in half and fiercely slashed the black dragon's head in an instant. Amidst the black dragon's screams, Gu Yin burst into laughter and said, This pocket world is really good. I can finally unleash my full power without the damn heavenly Tao restraining me. Although my current power is less than 1/10,000 of my peak. The black dragon was slashed by the sword and his huge body was sent flying backward. The intense pain made him howl endlessly. However, his heart instantly sank to the bottom of the valley after hearing Gu Yenner's words. 1/10,000? Her current strength was less than 1/10,000th of what it had been at her peak? How was this possible? Could it be? The black dragon summoned his courage and roared, "Immortal, are you a perfected golden immortal of the immortal world?" Gu Yenner slashed her sword again and sneered, "Perfected golden immortal? That's right, I've killed more than 10 perfected golden immortals and slaughtered more than 10,000 golden immortals. You're just a little black dragon. Your natal immortal soul is indeed not weak. You should have had the strength of a golden immortal in the past. Unfortunately, you're just an ant in my eyes." The black dragon was scared out of its wits. It finally understood why it couldn't see through the strength of this woman when it used its innate ability. It turned out that she was once a perfected golden immortal. "No, that human," Gu Yenner sneered. "I know what you want to say. My master used to be a supreme in the immortal world, but he became like this due to some special reasons. You're just a little evil creature, yet you want to kill my master? You're just courting death." Standing in the air, Tan Xiao watched the black dragon being severely injured by Gu Yenner. A bitter feeling rose inside his heart. He used to have monstrous strength and stood at the peak of the immortal world, overlooking all living beings. Never did he expect that a little black dragon would be able to bully him at will. Of course, he might not have the confidence to beat the black dragon if they were to fight, but he could still escape. However, once he escaped from this pocket world, the black dragon would follow him and the entire human race on Earth would suffer. "Kill it, Yen. I need its skeleton for my cultivation." Tan Xiao took a deep breath and said in a clear voice. "Don't worry, master," Gu Yenner said with a smile. "Since it dares to kill you, I must slaughter it today." The black dragon was scared out of its wits at this moment. It endured humiliation for 100,000 years just to restore its original appearance and strength so that it could return to the Azura world in the future and kill all its enemies. However, it never expected that it would encounter such a terrifying enemy before it could fully recover its strength and leave this pocket world. Moreover, the enemy wanted to kill it. It shouldn't have. It regretted its previous actions. It shouldn't have threatened to kill that seemingly weak human. Otherwise, it wouldn't have provoked such a terrifying enemy. Time elapses, space overlaps. Gu Yenner coldly uttered those words, and the hazy sword shadow instantly split into two, causing layers of ripples to spread out in the air. The black dragon was horrified to find that its body felt as though it had sunk into a swamp. No matter how hard it struggled, it seemed to be bound by the power of space. The black dragon wasn't most confident in its current strength, but the toughness of its body. However, when it was split in half, its last thought was regret that it couldn't control its character, leading to a fatal disaster. Whoosh! Tan Xiao's figure floated over. With a secret technique, he took out all the jade bottles, porcelain bottles, and various storage containers from his interspatial ring. As for the scattered dragon blood, it was all collected into bottles and jars. Seal. Tan Xiao performed a hand seal, piecing the black dragon's body back together and then sealed it, preventing more dragon blood from flowing out. Yenner, devour the dragon soul. Tan Xiao flicked his fingers and put away all the containers containing the dragon blood. After that, he imprisoned the dragon soul that rushed out of the black dragon's body and threw it to Gu Yenner. Gu Yenner caught the dragon soul and said hurriedly, "Master, you need to recover your strength now. If you devour this dragon soul, it will at least allow you to rush to the late stage of tribulation passing in a short time. At that time, your strength will be at the grand completion stage and you can start preparing for your ascension." Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "I've obtained a huge opportunity since I came to this world. My current strength is comparable to a great ascension stage cultivator. It's a bit greedy if I want to break through to the late stage of tribulation passing in a short time. Yenner, what I need now is a solid foundation, not a rush to break through to a higher level. You're still seriously injured and you're going all out to kill the enemy, so you can devour this dragon soul to recover most of your injuries. Gu Yenner said, then I'll take this dragon soul and wait for you to stabilize your great ascension stage before you devour it. Tan Xiu frowned and said, listen to me, Yen. Devour it immediately. Seeing Tan Xiu's stern expression, Gu Yenner was secretly moved. She no longer hesitated and directly took out the sealed dragon soul and directly swallowed it. With the circulation of her cultivation technique, the struggling dragon soul was eventually suppressed and refined by her. Eventually, it turned into a stream of dragon soul energy that healed her injuries and nourished her immortal body, restoring her strength ahead of time. 2 days later, Tan Xiu and Tang An had set foot in many places of this pocket world, yet they still couldn't find the edge of this world. Therefore, Tan Xiu judged that this pocket world was very large, far beyond his imagination. In these 2 days, he obtained a lot of cultivation resources, be it medicinal herbs, precious ores, or some other treasures. The cultivation resources for all the disciples of Tang sect will be enough for the next 100 years. If I can get all the resources in this pocket world, the Tang sect's scale will be 100 times stronger than it is now in the future. It'll be enough for the sect to use for 1,000 years. Tang Xiu was very satisfied. Tang An was also very happy. After Tan Xiu received the violet blood of that fierce beast, he gave her a few bottles. She took a bottle of it and her strength soared a lot. After 8 or 9 days of cultivation, her cultivation had now broken through to the late stage of nascent soul. She had a hunch that she would be able to break through to the spirit formation stage after taking the remaining bottles of violet blood. Reaching the spirit formation stage was her biggest goal for the next few decades. Sure enough, my cultivation speed will be very fast if I follow Grandmaster. If the others knew that I've broken through to the late stage of nascent soul, wouldn't they be jealous? Every time Tang An thought about it, she felt very happy. She didn't like to show off, but she couldn't help but want to let the elders of Tang sect know about it. A hazy figure appeared in front of Tan Xiu and Tang An clad in a fluttering white dress. Gu Yenner came in front of the two and looked at Tang An with satisfaction. Then she smilingly said to Tan Xiu, Master, devouring a dragon soul has healed most of my injuries. I'll be able to fully recover in half a year at most. However, I can't restore my lost strength in a short time. I've only recovered to the peak of the Earth Immortal stage. I'm afraid it'll take a long time for me to recover to the Celestial Immortal stage. There's no immortal chi in this area, said Tan Xiu with a gratified expression. It'll be very difficult for you to recover to the Celestial Immortal stage. But if you can stay here and cultivate for a long time, the benefits you'll get will be huge. Perhaps you'll be able to recover to the Celestial Immortal stage in less than 10 years. With a particularly bright smile, Gu Yenner nodded and said, the space in this pocket world is very stable. It won't collapse even if the outside world is shattered. Further, the violet chi here is very rich and will bring great benefits to any cultivator, including immortals. I'm confident that I'll be able to recover to the peak of the Celestial Immortal stage within the next 10 years, Master. Tan Xiu nodded and said, you can do it. The more strength you recover, the safer we'll be in the future. Come with me when I leave this pocket world. I need you to use your spiritual sense to help me find the remaining zodiac jade carvings. As long as we can find all the 12 zodiac jade carvings, I'll be able to arrange a spatial array so that we can all return to the immortal world. It won't be a problem if I can recover to the Celestial Immortal stage, Master. Gu Yenner hesitated. But if I can't, I'll be suppressed by the heavenly Tao once I go out. Even if I can find the remaining zodiac jade carvings in a very short time, I'm afraid I'll be injured again. Chapter 1200. Upon hearing this, Tan Xiu immediately realized how terrifying the heavenly Tao laws in the outside world were, so he immediately said, if that's the case, then you can cultivate to the Celestial Immortal stage here. It'll probably take decades for us to leave Earth, so there's no need to hurry. Besides, I found that this pocket world is just specially prepared for us. I firmly believe that our Tang sect will be 100 times stronger in the next few years with this place. Gu Yen looked around and nodded. You're right, Master. This place is almost the same as the immortal world. The strength of all the Tang sect's disciples will advance by leaps and bounds if they cultivate here. Also, I found something interesting. What is it? Asked Tan Xiu. The blood of the fierce beasts living here is comparable to the ambrosia nectar and elixirs, said Gu Yen. The energy contained in their blood is simply incredible. Tan Xiu nodded heavily. I've already noticed it before. It's indeed the case. Gu Yen pointed to the world and said, if the Tang sect's disciples are to cultivate here, they can use this place as a natural battlefield to hone their killing ability. On the other hand, they can also advance their strength by leaps and bounds. It's like killing two birds with one stone. I'll leave a group of people in Nine Dragons Island next. After all, that's our base camp. Tan Xiu said, the rest will be brought here to cultivate. We'll take turns to cultivate here and in Nine Dragons Island later. This pocket world is very vast, at least twice the size of China, Gu Yen asked. Although there are no fierce beasts like the black dragon here, there are still several body integration stage experts and tens of spirit formation stage fierce beasts. The strength of Tang sect's disciples is too low. Do you want me to get rid of these fierce beasts ahead of time? No need. Tan Xiu waved his hand. The strength of Tang sect's disciples is very low at present, but they will soon grow up. We'll keep these fierce beasts to feed them in the future. Gu Yen nodded and said, that's fine. I'll be staying here anyway. As long as I'm here, those beasts won't be able to do anything. Grandmaster, Master, can I stay here to cultivate? Asked Tang. You can only stay here and cultivate for half a year at most, said Tan Xiu. You must go out after that. You'll need to form the Assassination Hall's assassins. You don't want to be the weakest among all the halls in Tang sect, do you? You're right, Grandmaster. Tang nodded and said, my strength will advance by leaps and bounds if I cultivate here for half a year. When the time comes, I'll set up the Hall of Assassins outside. I can also bring the members I've trained here to cultivate and speed up their cultivation. No problem. Tan Xiu nodded. Suddenly, as though recalling something, Tan Xiu hurriedly looked at Gu Yen and said, there are many fierce beasts outside. There are at least 1,000 of them. Chen Xiaohua and his men are chasing after them, but I don't think it's realistic for them to kill all the fierce beasts with their strength. You stay here to collect cultivation resources, while Tangyan and I will go outside to deal with those fierce beasts. Understood. Gu Yen nodded and didn't want to go outside to deal with the beasts. Tan Xiu turned around and was about to leave when he suddenly recalled something and said, there should be 7-colored Luan Phoenix stone here. Look for it carefully. It'll be of great use to me in the future if you can find it. I found a small mountain range with 7-colored Luan Phoenix stones, Master. I guarantee that I'll mine all the 7-colored Luan Phoenix stones stored in that mountain range before you return, said Gu Yen confidently. As a matter of fact, she had the ability to collect everything in this pocket world in the blink of an eye. But since this place would become the Tang sect's trial ground in the future, she could only give up the idea and slowly put away the cultivation resources. Shortly after, Tan Xiu and Tang left the pocket world. When they appeared outside, the 4 Tang sect disciples guarding outside directly appeared and respectfully saluted them. What happened to the fierce beasts that rushed out? Asked Tan Xiu. What's the situation outside now? Sect Master, Jin Shi and Chen Xiaohua led dozens of Tang sect disciples and are going all out to hunt those fierce beasts, answered a Tang sect disciple. I don't know why, but those fierce beasts always retreat whenever they enter the vicinity of the Longquan mountain range. It's as though they're afraid of the outside world. Also, a lot of ability users from China's Special Abilities Bureau have come. After nearly 10 days of hunting, they've killed 400 to 500 fierce beasts and the rest have fled. Tan Xiu was surprised. He didn't expect that those fierce beasts didn't rush out of the mountain range, nor did they go outside to harm ordinary people. However, it was after all good news. You guys continue to guard here. Tangyan, let's have a competition to hunt the fierce beasts. We'll gather here 2 days later and see who can hunt more fierce beasts, said Tan Xiu with a smile. A fighting intent flashed in Tang En's eyes and she smilingly said, "I'll definitely win, Sect Master." Tang Xiu laughed heartily and his figure instantly flashed to the distance. He released his spiritual sense to the fullest while dashing all the way, covering a radius of a kilometer. Soon after, four nearly identical fierce beasts appeared within the range of his spiritual sense. Die! Tan Xiu unleashed his divine sword and instantly slashed the bushes tens of meters away. The sword's shadow swept out lightning fast and killed the four fierce beasts that were only comparable to Qi refining stage experts. Half a day later, Tan Xiu encountered several groups of ability users, including a group of 6 ability users who were besieged by dozens of fierce beasts. After Tan Xiu appeared, he directly rescued them from the jaws of those fierce beasts. A day later, Tan Xiu alone killed more than 270 fierce beasts and found Jin Shi covered in blood in a mountain stream. At this moment, Jin Shi was seriously injured, but his life was not in danger. By the time Tan Xiu arrived, the 2 fierce beasts comparable to Golden Core stage had already been killed by Jin Shi and the 4 Tang sect disciples. Drink the fierce beast blood in the jade bottle. Tan Xiu threw 5 jade bottles to the 5 people and flashed away. There was another fierce beast 800 to 900 meters away from him within the range of his spiritual sense. The fierce beast was hiding in a cave in the mountain stream, and Tan Xiu wouldn't have been able to find it had it not been for his spiritual sense's omnidirectional coverage. Jin Shi fiddled with the jade bottle. When he unplugged the cork, the thick smell of blood made him slightly frown. He watched the other 4 people pour the blood in the jade bottle into their mouths without hesitation. He no longer hesitated and drank the fierce beast's blood in one gulp. His eyes stared with disbelief. "Hurry up and cultivate," Jin Shi shouted in a low voice. He immediately sat cross-legged and began to crazily circulate his cultivation technique. It only took Tang Xiu half an hour to kill all the fierce beasts within a radius of tens of kilometers. When he returned to Jin Shi's group, he found that the aura of the 5 of them had changed. Early stage of nascent soul? Tan Xiu judged Jin Shi's current cultivation level through his aura. As a smile climbed up his face, he found that the other 4 had also broken through to the Golden Core stage and reached the late stage. Sect Master! Jin Shi woke up from his cultivation and immediately jumped up after seeing Tan Xiu sitting cross-legged in front of him and respectfully greeted him. "You've made good progress." Tan Xiu smiled and said, "I'll take you to the pocket world after we get rid of all the fierce beasts in this mountain range. You'll get twice the result with half the effort if you cultivate there. Perhaps you'll be able to break through to the spirit formation stage in a few years, and the 5 of you should be able to do so within 10 years. Pocket world? A blessed land? The 5 exchanged dismayed glances and looked excited. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "Let's continue hunting the fierce beasts. The earlier you kill all the fierce beasts, the faster you can enter the pocket world to cultivate." "That's right. I've been searching here for a day and found several groups of ability users from the Special Abilities Bureau. How come I haven't seen Duanmu Lin?" "Duanmu Lin is injured and has retreated to recuperate," said Jin Shi. "You can find him in Shuyang Town near Longquan Mountain if you want to find him." Tan Xiu nodded in response. He didn't rush to find Duanmu Lin and instead went elsewhere to find fierce beasts to hunt. He had a bet with Tang En, so he didn't want to waste any more time. The next evening, when Tan Xiu returned to the Pocket World's entrance, he saw Tang En sitting cross-legged on a large blue stone with a smile on her face and looking at him. "How many?" Tan Xiu came to Tang En and asked with a smile. "Not a lot, just 188 fierce beasts," answered Tang En. Tan Xiu gave a thumbs up and praised, "Amazing! You actually found so many fierce beasts in just 2 days." "I'm well aware that you've hunted more fierce beasts than me, Grandmaster," said Tang En with a smile. "But I've decided that you'll fail as long as you hunt less than 200 fierce beasts." "I'm afraid you'll be disappointed then." Tan Xiu chuckled and said, "There are a total of 406 fierce beasts. 4 of them are at the Golden Core stage." The smile on Tang En's face froze and she asked in disbelief, "You killed them all by yourself? How is that possible?" "Nothing is impossible." Tan Xiu chuckled and said, "My spiritual sense can cover a radius of 1 kilometer, so all fierce beasts have nowhere to hide wherever I go. Plus, these fierce beasts are very weak, so I don't have to waste my time at all and can kill them faster." "You're just cheating, Grandmaster," said Tang'an with a bitter smile. Tan Xiu burst into laughter and said, "Spiritual sense is also a part of one's strength. Your spiritual sense power won't be too bad if you can reach my current level. Work hard and you'll feel the benefits of having a powerful spiritual sense in the future." "I understand, Grandmaster," said Tang'an seriously. "In order to become a powerhouse, a powerful divine sense is a must. In fact, my divine sense is already very powerful. In order to learn array formations, I specifically picked out a cultivation method to cultivate divine sense from the library pavilion. Now, I have some results. 4th chapter has been completed. I'm begging for a monthly vote." Chapter 12:01. A match without any bets could only be regarded as a seasoning for the fierce beasts hunting. Tan Xiu had many means and was very strong. He also had a heaven-defying cheat like his spiritual sense, so he was naturally much more powerful than Tang'an. After putting all the fierce beasts' corpses Tang'an hunted into his interspatial ring, he then rushed to Shuyang town near Longquan Mountain. This time, with such a big crisis in Longquan Mountain, Tan Xiu must have a talk with Duanmu Lin, especially about the ownership of the pocket world. Tan Xiu had secretly decided that he would take it for himself no matter how much it would cost. That pocket world was simply a blessed land. Be it China or the Special Abilities Bureau, it would be a waste even if they obtained it. It was better to use good steel on the blade and let the Tang sect make good use of it. Shuyang Town. It was a small town with only tens of thousands of residents and a total of 6 small towns. The nearest city to the town was more than 200 kilometers away. At Wenxin Hotel. It was located in the center of the town. Other than a small square that was occupied by some stalls, the other 4 streets that extended out were all made up of 2-story shops. Although the environment looked dirty and messy, the people who lived here didn't mind. At the entrance of the hotel, Zhu Long, whose right arm was bandaged, squatted at the side and frowned while smoking. He kept flipping the phone in his left hand and glanced at the pedestrians in the surroundings. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he threw the cigarette butt to the ground. He got up and stamped it out and then strode forward to greet the person. "Tan Xiu." Zhu Long's furrowed brows stretched out and he called out with a smile. Tan Xiu nodded in response. His eyes swept over Zhu Long's right arm and he lightly smiled. "You're injured? Is it serious?" "No, it's nothing serious." Zhu Long shook his head and smilingly said, "I just need to fix it for the time being. I'll be able to remove the cast and bandages in 2 days at most, and I'll be full of vigor in 3 or 4 days at most. I'll be able to participate in the battle." "What about Senior Duanmu?" asked Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "I'll take you upstairs," said Zhu Long. On the 2nd floor. In a quiet room, Duanmu Lin was sleeping soundly. Because of the battle, his injuries were very serious. However, at the critical moment, he finally killed the powerful beasts that surrounded him. The sound of the door made him wake up from his sleep. He opened his drowsy eyes and saw Zhu Long coming in. He didn't intend to get up at first, but when he saw Tan Xiu behind Zhu Long, he propped himself up with his arms and sat up with difficulty. A smile appeared on his aged face as he said, "Boy, you finally showed up. I thought you were eaten by a fierce beast." Tan Xiu smiled bitterly. "Just a little bit more." Duanmu Lin's expression changed and he hurriedly asked, "What's wrong? Did you encounter a powerful dire beast?" "It's very powerful." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "If it wasn't for Yen rushing to save me, I would have probably died in the hands of the fierce beasts. Alas, it's our Tang sect's fault that caused you to rush here and get injured. I'm really sorry." Duanmu Lin was confused. "What do you mean? Are you saying that this fierce beast incident was caused by your Tang sect?" "That's right," Tan Xiu said. "This Longquan Mountain is a place where our Tang sect raises fierce beasts. I didn't expect that the array would be destroyed and so many fierce beasts would run out. Fortunately, we took precautions in advance, so those fierce beasts didn't dare to leave the Longquan mountain range, so the nearby residents weren't harmed. Duanmu Lin looked a bit angry and said, "You're just making trouble. This place may be vast and sparsely populated, but do you think it's easy to raise fierce beasts in captivity? Fortunately, we dealt with it in time, else it would have been a big problem." Tan Xiu deliberately forced a smile and said, "It's our Tang sect's fault for not taking precautions before. I guarantee that this kind of problem won't happen again in the future." Duanmu Lin pondered for a moment and then asked, "How many places in China does your Tang sect secretly rear fierce beasts?" "Apart from here, there are only 2 islands in the South China Sea," answered Tan Xiu. "Senior Duanmu, you should know that I once rented 2 islands in the South China Sea for a long time." Duanmu Lin nodded and said, "I know, but I don't know what you're going to do." Tan Xiu, rearing fierce beasts in captivity is no trivial matter, especially in this place. It's very dangerous. I hope you can kill all the fierce beasts or move them away, at least far away from China's territory. "I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to move the fierce beasts here, Senior Duanmu," said Tan Xiu with a forced smile. "But I assure you that my Tang sect will station a lot of experts here in the future. I'll also arrange a more powerful array so that this kind of problem will never happen again." Duanmu Lin was silent for a long time. Then he forced a smile and said, "Forget it, then. I won't force you to move those fierce beasts for the sake of your timely remedy. However, I'm really curious about how many fierce beasts you've reared. Why have you been rearing them in the Longquan mountain range, and why haven't they been exposed before?" "We have a lot of them in captivity," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "We've always been very secretive, so it's naturally impossible for the outside world to know about it." Duanmu Lin shook his head and suddenly asked, "What's going on with the quakes all over the country? The whole country is talking about this matter now." "It's because a fierce beast suddenly mutated in the pocket world where we're rearing fierce beasts," explained Tan Xiu. "It caused its power to soar by 100-fold and the destructive power it caused during its transformation. We've already killed that fierce beast and the crisis has been resolved. Furthermore, my disciple, Gu Yinu, is the one you met at sea, Senior Duanmu. She'll be stationed here for a long time in the future." Duanmu Lin's eyes widened and he incredulously said, "Are you kidding me? How can a fierce beast mutate cause such a big commotion? You should know that the entire country of Huaxia has experienced the tremors." "Senior Duanmu, what's the strength of the most powerful fierce beast you've ever seen?" asked Tan Xiu calmly. Duanmu Lin thought for a while and said, "Those demonic beasts we killed in the Himalayas were very powerful. They were so powerful that they gave me a sense of despair. There's also that fire Qilin. It's very powerful. I'm afraid that all the people in our Special Abilities Bureau are not enough to kill it. What if I tell you that the strength of that mutated fierce beast is at least 100 times stronger than that fire Qilin?" Tan Xiu nodded. He wouldn't have believed it if he hadn't experienced the terrifying demonic beast attack in the Himalayas. But now, looking at the serious expression on Tan Xiu's face, he nodded without a word and forced a smile. "It seems that I still need to have formidable power. Else, I can only welcome death when the crisis comes." Tan Xiu forced a wry smile inwardly. The lie he fabricated was the most direct way to avoid the country's intervention. Else, if Duanmu Lin knew that he had found a pocket world here, he would probably represent the country to get a share of the loot given his character. Even though Duanmu Lin was likely to be his subordinate decades later, it was not because of his selfishness. It was because he didn't want to waste a lot of resources since the country's machinery was not in the hands of a single person. Countless people would swarm here, which would bring a lot of troubles. Duanmu Lin looked up at Tan Xiu and asked, "Can I go to the place where you rear the fierce beasts?" "I don't want you to go, Senior Duanmu," said Tan Xiu helplessly. "We've already killed that mutated fierce beast, but all the other fierce beasts are very irritable because of it. Many people from the Tang sect are dealing with and suppressing them inside. It'll be very difficult to solve the crisis inside in a few months. With your strength, it'll be very easy for you to run into problems once you go inside. I'll have to send people to protect you when the time comes." Duanmu Lin's old face nearly turned green after hearing it. I'm being looked down upon. Looking at the helpless expression on Tan Xiu's face, he didn't know what kind of expression he should use to face Tan Xiu apart from crying or laughing. In the whole of China, perhaps only Tan Xiu dared to despise him in front of his face. After a long while, Duanmu Lin weakly raised his arm and said, "Forget it. I won't disturb you since it's not convenient now. Tan Xiu, keep in mind that this incident must never happen again. Since you're going to rear fierce beasts in Longquan Mountain, you'd better set up a feng shui array in the periphery of the mountain range that won't threaten ordinary people. It'll be a double insurance." Tan Xiu's eyes lit up and he was secretly delighted inwardly. Duanmu Lin's suggestion to set up a feng shui array in the periphery of Longquan Mountain Range meant that the Longquan Mountain Range would belong to the Tang sect in the future. Shortly after, Tang Xiu left 10 holy healing pills for Duanmu Lin and then patted his butt and left. As for the ability users of the Special Abilities Bureau, they received Duanmu Lin's order to evacuate less than a few minutes after Tan Xiu left. In the next half a month, Tan Xiu, Tang and Jin Shi, and the others searched the entire Longquan Mountain Range and finally killed all the fierce beasts that escaped. After entering the pocket world, Tan Xiu learned from Gu Yan that she had collected all the priceless treasures in the entire pocket world, leaving behind some precious things that didn't need to be collected in a hurry. "This is our heritage, Master." Gu Yan took out an interspatial ring and put it in Tan Xiu's hand. Tan Xiu observed it with his spiritual sense and was secretly shocked when he saw everything inside. Even though he was once a supreme in the immortal world, the resources and wealth he possessed were not much more than this. It must be noted that he used to be in the immortal world, whereas this place was just a pocket world attached to Earth. "I understand now." Tan Xiu put away the interspatial ring and sighed with a bitter smile. "What do you understand, Master?" asked Gu Yan with a confused expression. "I finally understand now why so many powerhouses in the immortal world spared no effort to open up new territories. It turns out that they didn't do it for the territory, but for resources," said Tan Xiu. "Once they find a treasure land with a lot of resources, they'll get countless benefits. Today's the last 2 days. I'm looking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Chapter 1202. It was a boundless pocket world. Apart from the entrance, the area within a radius of 1,000 miles was filled with mountains, lakes, valleys, and highlands. The highest peak of this pocket world was the towering mountain in the central region. It was 2,000 meters high, with jagged rocks of grotesque shapes and steep slopes. It was extremely difficult to climb it. However, at the peak of this towering mountain, there was a richly ornamented building standing on it. A smile hung on the corner of Gu Yan's mouth. She stood on the small square in front of the classical pavilion and looked at the undulating mountains in front of her. She chuckled and said, "Master, it took Yan a few days to build a pavilion here. It's amazing, isn't it?" A warm feeling rose in Tan Xiu's heart. It was because this pavilion was a miniature version of the one he lived in the immortal world. He had lived there for thousands of years, so he could naturally recognize it. He smiled and said, "It's amazing. I didn't expect you to have such a talent." The smile on Gu Yan's face slowly receded and she said in a low voice, "I know every place, every scenery, and even the distance between the objects in this pavilion. I even personally refined an immortal artifact when I was fighting in the immortal world and used it as my residence. Unfortunately, that immortal artifact was smashed by Zhu Wushou. Otherwise, I could just leave it here." Tan Xiu hugged Gu Yan's shoulder and gently patted it. "Then," he said softly, "when we return to the immortal world and I cultivate to the supremacy stage again, I'll personally refine a palace for you. I guarantee it'll be exactly the same as the place we used to live." Gu Yan looked happy and nodded repeatedly. She was looking forward to her master returning to his peak. At that time, he would be able to slay his enemies and kill all those damn traitors. There was also Shade Demon Zhu Wushou. That bastard was very rampant in the immortal world. She must kill him in the future. "Xiao Xue, you're here," Gu Yan suddenly said. Tan Xiu followed Gu Yan's line of sight and looked towards the distant mountain peak. He saw Ji Qimei and Gu Xiaoxue rushing towards his direction at lightning speed. In just a few breaths, Ji Qimei and Gu Xiaoxue were already standing in front of him. "Hi Lord. Grandmaster." Ji Qimei and Gu Xiaoxue saluted one after another. "How many Tang sect disciples are coming this time?" asked Tan Xiu. Gu Xiaoxue said, "There are a total of 80 people. They are currently searching for treasures in this small world and will arrive here in 2 days." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "Let's wait for them to arrive and set up a camp on the nearby mountain peak. With Yenner here, she can guide everyone in their cultivation and their strength will advance by leaps and bounds. Perhaps a group of nascent soul stage experts will emerge in our sect in a year and a half." Gu Xiaoxue was surprised. Nascent soul stage? How is that possible? 1/3 of the 80 Tang sect disciples we brought are only at the late stage of foundation establishment, not even at the golden core stage. "I won't explain it to you." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, "You've just arrived, so you don't know about the magical things in this small world yet. Alright, go and find the treasures. All the treasures collected by Tang sect's disciples must be handed over to you personally." "They all know the rules, Grandmaster, so they won't hide anything," said Gu Xiaoxue respectfully. Finished. She looked at Tan Xiu's calm expression and said in a low voice, "Grandmaster, we found some people with special identities when we just arrived in the vicinity of Longquan Mountain. We secretly caught one of them and interrogated him. We found out that he is a member of China's intelligence team, and his main responsibility is to gather intelligence around Longquan Mountain. Also, there are a lot of people, about 100 of them." Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and muttered to himself, "It seems that Duanmu Lin is still worried about me. He withdrew the people from the Special Abilities Bureau, but he sent so many intel operatives here. I presume he's monitoring us." "Do you want to drive them away, Grandmaster?" asked Gu Xiaoxue. Tan Xiu thought for a while and shook his head. "I'll handle this matter, so you don't need to worry about it. Also, everyone will stay here for the time being after they arrive here 2 days later. I'll be staying here for about 10 days. Take advantage of this time to train them." "Understood." Gu Xiaoxue nodded. 10 days. Aside from desperately cultivating every day to stabilize his current cultivation level, Tan Xiu also fiercely trained the 80 Tang sect disciples. Aside from constantly taking medicinal pills and body-refining potions, the fierce beast blood also made their cultivation progress by leaps and bounds. Good steel was tempered and tempered. In these 10 days, Tan Xiu made them struggle between pain and happiness. After the devilish training, the worst among the 80 had broken through to the early stage of nascent soul, and the most powerful had broken through to the late stage of nascent soul, just a step away from breaking through to the spirit formation stage. However, as soon as Tan Xiu left the pocket world, he received a call from Duanmu Lin and learned that several old men wanted to see him in Shanghai. After confirming the time and was about to leave, he found that Chen Xiaohua came out of the pocket world and seemed to be looking for him. "What is it?" "Sect Master, I want to follow you in the future," said Chen Xiaohua after hesitating for a moment. A strange look appeared on Tan Xiu's face. He looked at him up and down several times and then asked, "Why do you want to follow me? Isn't it a good thing to cultivate in the pocket world? You should have broken through to the mid-stage of nascent soul now, right? If you keep working hard, you may be able to break through to the late stage of nascent soul in half a year, and you can easily break through to the spirit formation stage in a few years or 10 years. Pointing to his chest, Chen Xiaohua forced a smile and said, "My cultivation is very strong now, Sect Master. But I recently found that my foundation is a bit unstable, which is caused by my cultivation advancing too fast. Therefore, I want to follow you and sharpen my state of mind. I'll come back here to cultivate when I feel it's the right time." "State of mind?" Tan Xiu narrowed his eyes and asked, "You can feel the problem of your state of mind now?" Chen Xiaohua nodded. "I've been feeling irritated and irritable when I'm cultivating recently. My mood fluctuates too much, and I can't devote myself to cultivation wholeheartedly. Besides, I can't even display the power of the mid-stage of nascent soul now." Tan Xiu thought for a while and then said, Go back to the pocket world and inform them that the 80 Tang sect disciples must return to 9 Dragons Island in 2 months and replace them with the next batch. Do remember to tell them that they must not break through to the spirit formation stage and must stay at the late stage of nascent soul. No matter who it is, they must feel that their realm has completely stabilized and their state of mind has kept up with it. Then, they must report to me about the situation and get my test before breaking through to the spirit formation stage. What about me, Sect Master? Asked Jin Shaohua hurriedly. Since you think you can gain experience by following me, then stay with me later. Tan Xiu smilingly said. I'll be waiting for you in Shanghai. Understood. Chen Shaohua was overjoyed and respectfully saluted Tan Xiu. Then, he dashed toward the entrance of the pocket world lightning fast. This time, Tan Xiu left the pocket world without bringing anyone with him. Even Tang An stayed in the pocket world to cultivate in seclusion. Shuyang Town, Wenxin Hotel. After Tan Xiu appeared at the entrance of the hotel, he noticed that many people in the surroundings were looking at him. With his keen insight, Tan Xiu could naturally tell that they were people from the State Intelligence Agency. Come here. Tan Xiu halted his pace and beckoned to a man and a woman who looked like a couple a dozen meters away. The duo hesitated for a moment before they walked to Tan Xiu. What's the matter? Asked the young man. Help me contact Duan Mulin. Tell him that I have something to discuss with him and tell him to wait for me in the Everlasting Feast Hall in Shanghai, said Tan Xiu lightly. If he's accompanying someone, tell them to go to the Everlasting Feast Hall in Shanghai. The young man's expression slightly changed and he said, I don't understand what you're talking about, sir. Tan Xiu snorted coldly and directly took out the small green book from his interspatial ring. He showed it in front of the duo and lightly asked, Do you know what I'm talking about now? Understood. The man and woman disguised as a couple hurriedly nodded and saluted. Tan Xiu shook his head and walked into the Wenxin Hotel. After he came to the front desk on the first floor, he saw a listless woman inside and lightly said, Give me the car key. The woman immediately looked excited upon seeing Tan Xiu and respectfully said, Which car do you need to drive, boss? All the cars are in the backyard, and you can choose these keys. You don't have to be so restrained. Be careful. The walls have ears, said Tan Xiu. Understood. The woman immediately became spirited after hearing it. The Wenxin Hotel had been secretly purchased by the Tang sect, and the former owner of the hotel had become an intelligence agent of the Tang sect. Furthermore, she also learned about Tan Xiu's identity due to the special circumstances in Longquan Mountain. Tan Xiu randomly picked a car key and took it to the backyard. He then saw more than a dozen different cars parked there. After he pressed the key button, the lights of a Mercedes-Benz SUV flashed. Back to Shanghai. Tan Xiu didn't plan to take the train, nor did he plan to take a plane. He had been busy with his cultivation and training of the Tang sect's disciples recently. Although his cultivation and strength had made great progress, he was aware that it was a good thing to take breaks in cultivation. Hence, he decided to take a break and drive alone on the way back. It could be regarded as a vacation for him to have a good rest. The environment in the west was very beautiful. Although the roads were bumpy, the off-road performance of the SUV Tan Xiu was driving was very good. He drove very fast on the road where there were few people. It only took him an hour and a half to travel 200 kilometers. I'm gonna find a gas station to refuel. This was the first thing Tan Xiu did after coming to this city called Halago. Chapter 1203. The urban area of Haragu wasn't very big, and it could only be compared to a small county in the mainland. After smoothly driving to a gas station, Tan Xiu found that there were many people there, but there were more than a dozen cars waiting in line, and no one was there to refuel. What's going on? Tan Xiu opened the window and found that the window of a Mercedes-Benz SUV next to him was also open. A man with a tattoo on his shoulder and a cigarette in his hand was smoking. He slightly frowned and asked. The man glanced at Tan Xiu. He didn't want to answer Tan Xiu's question, but waiting was boring enough, so he casually said, What else can it be? The only driving school in the city's only coach car comes to refuel at this time every day. We have to wait for them to finish refueling before we can get in line. Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and said, "But I don't see any coach car. Are they so arrogant that they want us to wait for them?" The man puffed out a mouthful of smoke and suddenly asked with a smile, "Brother, you're not a local, are you? You don't even know this unspoken rule?" "I'm not a local. I'm just passing by." Tan Xiu shook his head. A smile appeared on the man's face and he said, "No wonder. If so, then I'll explain it to you. As a matter of fact, the owner of this gas station is the property of the only driving school's principal in the city. The reason why he built a gas station here is mainly to serve his driving school. Usually, there aren't many school buses coming here to refuel, and they usually come in batches. If a lot of them come one day, we'll be out of luck because we won't have enough gasoline." Tan Xiu nodded with a smile and asked, "Do you have any enmity with the owner of this gas station?" The man stared blankly and immediately shook his head. "How could I have any enmity with him? There's no such thing." Tan Xiu smiled and said, "Since you don't have any enmity with the owner of this gas station, why do you come here and still dare to smoke? Aren't you afraid that the gas station will explode because of the open flame?" The man looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression and immediately threw the cigarette but on the ground outside. With a calm expression, he said, "Little brother, you do pay attention to your safety." Finished. He rolled up the window. Tan Xiu secretly shook his head and waited quietly for more than half an hour. Only then did he see more than 10 training vehicles with the words, "Maple Driving School," slowly drive over from afar. After waiting for nearly half an hour, it was Tan Xiu's turn to cheer. "Fill it up." After Tan Xiu extinguished the fire, he said calmly. The staff at the toll booth nodded and then glanced at the back. After filling up the gas tank and Tan Xiu paid her in cash, she lowered her voice and said, "Little brother, I can see that your license plate is not local. If you're not a local, you'd better hurry up and leave." Tan Xiu frowned and asked, "Why?" The staff said in a low voice, "There are often car owners who come to our gas station to refuel. After discovering a foreign car, they will sneakily follow it and rob it. I see that you're alone, so it's always good to be careful." "Thank you," said Tan Xiu with a smile. After restarting the car, Tan Xiu quickly drove toward the highway. Through the rearview mirror, he found that the tattooed man who talked to him before didn't refuel and instead drove behind him. Interesting. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and stepped on the accelerator. The car then rushed into the distance like an arrow. At the same time, he dialed the local police number and explained the matter. Finally, he said, "You can choose not to believe my words, but I need to tell you that I'm from the security department. I'm passing by here because I'm on a mission. Egret District, I'll stop at the entrance of Egret District's Zhongchuang Primary School and wait for those people to come. If you don't come, you'll have to bear the consequences." At the back, a ruthless look flashed in the eyes of the tattooed man who drove the Mercedes-Benz SUV. He quickly chased the car in front and said in a deep voice, "Leopard, you guys intercept him in the front. Once that guy drives out of the city, intercept him at the East Bridge outside the city. Although we both drive a Mercedes-Benz, the value of his car is definitely several times more expensive than mine. He's definitely a fat sheep. Don't worry, brother. I promise to stop him." A confident voice came out of the phone. Egret District, at the entrance of Zhongchuang Primary School. It was already evening and the primary school had long been closed, so there were not many pedestrians nearby. Except for a few young people smoking in the shops at the school entrance, no one paid much attention to the Mercedes-Benz SUV parked at the school entrance. "You guys come here." After getting off the car, Tan Xiu leaned on the door and lit a cigarette. He then waved to the teenagers who were looking at him. "Brother, you called us?" The 4 teenagers quickly came over with envious looks on their faces and glanced at the Mercedes-Benz SUV from time to time. Tan Xiu took out a stack of money from his wallet, about 1,000 yuan in cash. He handed it to the teenager in the front and said, "Do me a favor and this money is yours." The teenager took the money with an excited look on his face. He stuttered and asked, "Brother, what do you want us to do?" "Do you have a mobile phone?" asked Tan Xiu. The teenager quickly took out a smartphone. Although the price of the mobile phone was not very expensive, it was brand new. he said, "We all have mobile phones, brother. Call the police now and tell them that there's a violent incident at the entrance of Egret Primary School. Tell the police to come here as soon as possible," said Tan Xiu. "The four of you, call one person each and then leave this place immediately." The four teenagers hesitated. Calling the police was not a joke. If the nature of the incident turned into harassment, they would probably be detained. However, looking at the money in their hands, they finally gritted their teeth and said, "Brother, we'll call the police." Tan Xiu patted their shoulders and said with a smile, "Don't worry. There won't be any problem. There's going to be a violent incident here soon. If you call the police and report it, you may become a hero." Creak, creak, a black off-road vehicle was parked behind Tan Xiu's car, and the other 3 cars were also parked on both sides. As the doors opened, more than a dozen strong men greeted them with malicious smiles. The 4 teenagers' faces were faintly pale. They hurriedly looked at Tan Xiu and asked, "Brother, who are they? Are they looking for trouble with you?" "Yeah, they are indeed looking for trouble with me." Tan Xiu nodded. The leading teenager quickly glanced at the other 3 companions. After hesitating for a moment, he then looked at Tan Xiu and asked in a low voice, "Brother, can you give us more money?" 5,000 yuan. As long as you can give us another 5,000 yuan, I promise to help you solve the problem without calling the police." A strange expression was revealed on Tan Xiu's face. After seeing the other 3 nodding, he couldn't help but laugh and said, "How will you help me? Do you promise or not?" The teenager looked a bit anxious as he looked at the big men who were getting closer and closer. "I promise." After saying that, Tan Xiu took a puff of his cigarette again. The eyes of the leading teenager lit up. He immediately grabbed his mobile and dialed a number. Just 6 or 7 seconds later, he shouted, "Along, someone is giving us money to help solve the problem. Hurry up and bring them here. They're at the entrance of the elementary school." The other 3 teenagers also dialed their phones and called for help in a hurried voice. The strange expression on Tan Xiu's face turned more and more intense. He watched the 4 of them dialing another number. He was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he said, "I'm afraid I'll be beaten to death by them by the time you call them here. I say, you'd better listen to me and leave this place quickly." The leading teenager stubbornly shook his head and said aloud, "What's your name, brother?" "I'm Wang Hu, the tiger of the mountain tiger. I also have a younger brother called Along. Please wait for a while, he'll bring some people here soon." Tan Xiu was a bit helpless inwardly. He looked at the dozens of big and fierce men and stepped forward to greet them and smilingly said, "We meet again, brother." The tattooed man gave him a thumbs up and praised, "Look at you. You seem to have found some helpers. How many people could these kids call over? I'm not afraid to tell you that I, Yang Biao, have some fame in this city. My friends in the underworld call me Brother Biao." Tan Xiu shook his head. Suddenly, his words were abruptly stuck in his throat because he noticed that a dozen or so youths suddenly rushed out from an alley dozens of meters behind these burly men. They were all about 17 or 18 years old. Some of them were holding steel pipes, some were holding machetes, and some were even holding metal pliers in their hands. "Brother, we're coming." The one who rushed out was a teenager with a stocky build and a height of more than 1.8 meters. If it wasn't for his young and tender face, he would have thought that he was an adult. "Brothers, this big brother promised to give us 5,000 yuan to help him solve the problem," said Wang Hu loudly. "It's this group of people who want to find trouble with this big brother. Kill them. Beat them. Don't let them run away." More than a dozen teenagers rushed over and raised the weapons in their hands, quickly surrounding more than a dozen big adult men. Each and every one of them was like a fierce tiger cub, looking as if they were ready to attack at any time. "Hurry up, over there." At this time, from another direction, 5 or 6 teenagers rushed over with the same weapons in their hands. After running over, a teenager with dyed red hair shouted, "Brother who's bullying our rich man? Kill them." The tattooed man's complexion changed, and the dozen strong men around him also looked incredulous. They didn't expect that a few phone calls from 4 teenagers would actually call so many people. However, the matter was far from over. In just 4 or 5 minutes, a total of 9 groups of people rushed over. Some had more than a dozen people, while the others had 6 or 7 people. More than a dozen teenagers even rushed over on motorcycles and joined the encirclement. Chapter 1204. Nearly 100 youths dressed in strange clothes, all holding weapons, stared at the dozen strong men like tigers watching their prey. They did not have any fear. Instead, they were all eager to try. Perhaps as long as one of them roared, they would launch a fierce attack on the dozen strong men. Tan Xiu didn't expect that such a scene would appear in today's peaceful era. He found that these nearly 100 youths were like wolf cubs, exuding ferocity from their bodies. Wang Hu! Tang Xiu beckoned to Wang Hu. After the boy trotted to his front, he threw a cigarette to him and smilingly said, "You're quite amazing in such a scene with so many people here, kid." Wang Hu scratched his head and changed his ferocious look from before. Then he smiled and said, "It's not my credit, brother. It's A Lang. We'll listen to him." "Who's A Lang?" asked Tan Xiu curiously. "A Lang is our brother and also our boss," said Wang Hu. "It's a pity that he's not in good health, so he can't come here in person." Tan Xiu was a bit curious about this man named A Lang, but it was obviously not the time to talk about this matter. He shifted his gaze to the tattooed man, whose expression turned a bit ugly and looked a bit nervous. Tan Xiu lightly smiled and said, "I didn't want to bully you and just wanted to send you to prison for more than 10 years. I didn't expect that this bunch of kids would call so many people to come here. Now that things have come to this, let me ask you something first. Did I offend you since you followed me here in such a threatening manner? Or did you take a fancy to my money?" The tattooed man took a deep breath and instantly revealed his fierce fangs. Then he sneered and said, "We don't know each other, so of course we're here for your money. You're quite capable, brat. You can even gather so many little bastards. But you must give me some money even if you have 10 times more people today. Give me 100,000 yuan and we'll let you go today." Tan Xiu asked strangely, "You still want to rob me in such a situation?" The tattooed man lifted his coat and pulled out a handgun from his waist. The other 2 big men also pulled out their pistols. As for the others, they also took out their machetes from their sleeves and let out a sinister smile at Tang Xiu. The surrounding youths were shocked at first, but when they thought about the weapons in their hands, they didn't think much of it. Young people might be hot-blooded, but they were also afraid of real weapons. Once a bullet was loaded, they would probably run faster than a rabbit. Tan Xiu frowned. Behind the tattooed man, one of the men who had taken out a pistol suddenly exuded a murderous aura. For him to possess such a murderous aura, it meant that he had killed at least 10 people, and at least a few of them had been killed by him. "When I left the gas station, I called the police. You now have guns in your hands. Once the police come, you'll be charged with more crimes," said Tan Xiu calmly. The tattooed man rolled his eyes and sneered, "If we were afraid of the police, we wouldn't have taken out our weapons at this time. Brat, cut the crap and come with us, else you'll be shot. Also, get the fuck out of here, else this big daddy will shoot you." The nearly 100 youths looked a bit frightened, but they didn't flinch. After the initial fright, they secretly calmed down, especially the tall Wang Long. He raised the machete in his hand and angrily said, "You want to take away our sugar daddy? You'll have to ask the machetes in our hands first. Don't think we're afraid of you just because you have guns. How many of us can you kill? 20? But the rest of us can chop you into meat paste. That's right. At worst, we'll just have a life and death struggle." Wang Hu also sneered and said, "You dare to take away people who are willing to give us money? That means you're going against us. Human lives are not as valuable as money to us. We're willing to die for money. 5,000 yuan for 10 days. It's worth it even if we exchange our lives." "Fuck them." Nearly 100 youths roared. Each of them took 1 or 2 steps forward, ready to attack at any time. The tattooed man's complexion greatly changed. His companions also looked incredulous. Never did they expect that they would encounter such a group of crazy youths today. Were they really not afraid of death? After observing them, they were secretly alarmed that this group of youths should be afraid of death. But the idea of men die for wealth just as birds die for food, made them willing to throw caution to the wind. If they dared to open fire, they would probably swarm them. What to do? The tattooed man suddenly felt as though he was riding a tiger and was unable to get off. Tan Xiao keenly sensed the aura of these youths and was secretly shocked. He didn't expect that these nearly 100 youths would be so brave. Moreover, their original intention turned out to be for money. It was just 5,000 yuan, yet they were willing to exchange their lives for it. Suddenly, the sound of a police siren came from afar. The tattooed man's complexion changed. Although he was a bit angry, he was more relaxed. It was as though the siren did not bring him pressure, but a reminder of the arrival of his savior. A hesitant look appeared on Wang Hu's face. He gritted his teeth and looked at Tan Xiao, saying, "Brother, we're not afraid of death, but we can't go to the police station for nothing. Can you give us more money? If you're willing to give us more money, we'll accept it even if we all go to the police station." Tan Xiao calmly said, 10 times. I'll give you 10 times the price. Is that enough? Wang Hu clenched his fists and loudly said, "Brothers, did you hear that? This big brother wants to give us 10 times the price. 5,000 yuan will become 50,000 yuan. We brothers will throw caution to the wind. Even if it's in front of the police, if they dare to take this big brother away, we'll fight them." Fight! Almost every single one of the youths roared in unison. So, 6 police cars came roaring. When dozens of policemen rushed out of the cars, they began to wave the batons in their hands. A middle-aged policeman shouted, "Don't move. Put down your weapons and squat on the ground. Otherwise, I'll take all of you to the police station." The tattooed man looked excited when he saw the leading policeman, but he quickly suppressed his excitement and said loudly, "Director Liu, you came at the right time. This kid owes us money. We were looking for him to collect the debt, but we didn't expect him to call so many gangsters to surround us and kill us. You have to help us." The middle-aged policeman frowned and a look of disgust flashed in his eyes. He looked at Tan Xiao carefully and then strode to Tan Xiao and said, "Comrade, did you call the police?" Tan Xiao nodded and said, "Yes, I did." The middle-aged policeman said, "I'm Lu Yong from the Municipal Public Security Bureau. You said on the phone that you're a comrade from the State Security Department. Please show me your ID." Tan Xiao took out the green book and casually handed it to Lu Yong. Then he lightly said, "I'm really disappointed in your dispatch speed. It's been 36 minutes since I called you and told you the location in advance. But you came here in 36 minutes. This efficiency is simply rotten to the extreme. I really don't know how you're the chief of the Municipal Public Security Bureau." Lu Yong's heart skipped a beat when he saw the green book Tan Xiao took out. When he opened it and verified it, his heart immediately tensed up. He didn't take Tan Xiao's report to the police seriously before. He even drank a cup of tea and smoked a cigarette in the Public Security Bureau. Later, he thought about it and brought a team to check the situation, which was why he came here so late. But it's real. This ID is real, which means that this young man in front of me is indeed a member of the State Security Department. He's a special personnel of the state. Shit. Lu Yong was well aware that he would probably lose his job this time. Even if he could keep it, he would most likely be skinned alive. As he thought up to there, he steeled his heart and shouted in a deep voice, "Arrest these bastards who attacked the state's cadres. Cuff them all. I suspect that they're terrorists. Take them back to the station and slowly interrogate them. They must pay a painful price." What? The tattooed man's complexion greatly changed and disbelief was written all over his face. When he saw the dozens of policemen pouncing at him like wolves and tigers, gunshots rang out behind him before he could even speak. Bang! The muzzle of the gun was aimed at Lu Yong. However, in a split second, Tan Xiao flicked a silver needle from the gap between his fingers and directly deflected the bullet that was shot out of the muzzle. The bullet passed through the gaps in the crowd and didn't hurt anyone. Bang bang bang. Tan Xiao's movements were as fast as lightning. In nearly the blink of an eye, he had knocked down the 3 big men with guns. He also instantly grabbed their pistols and threw them to the feet of the city bureau chief, Lu Yong. Furthermore, he reprimanded him without hesitation. "You're the city bureau chief, yet you don't even have a bit of vigilance. Had I not acted, you would have lost your life here." Lu Yong was scared out of his wits by the sudden turn of events just now. When the dust settled and Tan Xiu loudly reprimanded him, only then did he sober up from the fear. Big beads of sweat rolled down his forehead, yet he didn't have the mood to wipe them. He felt that he had just passed through the gates of hell. He looked at Tan Xiu with eyes full of gratitude and said, "It's all my fault, Chief. Thank you for saving me. You're my great benefactor from today onward." Tan Xiu snorted coldly and lightly said, "I don't care if you're my benefactor or not. What I care about is that there are so many bandits in your jurisdiction. These people have guns in their hands, and they want to catch me and even rob me. If it weren't for this group of brave children, I'm afraid I would have been caught by them. I might even have been killed by them." Chapter 1205. A cold glint flashed in Lu Yong's eyes as he said in a deep voice, "Sir, they have concealed firearms, injured people, robbed people, endangered the country's public security, and are part of the underworld gangs. They even openly attack the police. I, Lu Yong, assure you that they will spend the rest of their lives in prison." Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and the indifferent expression on his face finally melted a lot. He patted his shoulder and lightly said, "Do things according to the law. These black sheep must be severely punished. I'll keep paying attention to this matter. Also, we have a lot of people in Shuyang town, so I'll also send someone to supervise this matter. We'll strive to catch all the underworld gangs in this city in the next few months." Lu Yong's eyes gleamed. He looked at the nearly 100 youths around and suddenly said, "Sir, can we go to the side and have a chat?" "All right," Tan Xiu replied. He then looked at Wang Hu and said, "Tell the others to disperse. Hand over all the knives in their hands to the police. I'll give you 10,000 yuan later as compensation for these things." Wang Hu's eyes lit up and he hurriedly shouted a few words. Immediately, a group of youths quickly retreated, tens of meters away. Tan Xiu looked at the solemn Lu Yong and lightly said, "What do you want to tell me?" "Sir, we need the leaders of the province to solve the public security problem in this city," said Lu Yong. "It's because some officials in this city, especially those who hold great power, have an unclear relationship with the underworld forces. I, Lu Yong, am just a chief of the City Public Security Bureau. Even if I have the intention, I don't have the strength to do it. I'm not afraid to tell you that the previous leader is a distant relative of a certain leader. I wouldn't dare to offend him if it were any other time. If I give you an imperial sword, do you dare to touch some people?" asked Tan Xiu. "An imperial sword?" Lu Yong recalled Tan Xiu's identity and suddenly realized that the small green book probably couldn't represent the other party's full power. His identity was definitely not simple. "I dare." Lu Yong was stimulated and said seriously, "Even if I have to give up my skin, I'm willing to make the public security of this city better." Tan Xiu said, "I'll give you a phone number. You can contact him directly." Now that his men had nothing better to do, he might as well make use of them. "Tell him that I asked you to find him." Lu Yong memorized the phone number and hesitated for a moment before asking, "Leader, may I ask who this is?" "I'm Duan Mulin, Director of the Special Abilities Bureau," replied Tan Xiu lightly. Hiss. Lu Yong was the director of the Municipal Public Security Bureau. It was reasonable to say that it was impossible for him to come in contact with such things. However, paranormal incidents had happened here, and it was the ability users of the State Ability Users Bureau who solved them. He had dealt with those terrifying humans and naturally knew what the director of the State Ability Users Bureau represented. They were the true experts who possessed the Shangfang sword. They were the true guardians of the country. I, Lu Yong, will absolutely live up to your expectations, leader." Lu Yong was so excited that his neck turned red as he resolutely guaranteed. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "If that's the case, then you can go back. I still have some time left, so I won't be staying here." "Understood." After saluting, Lu Yong immediately withdrew his team and escorted the dozens of fierce and ferocious men back. At last, only Tan Xiu and Wang Hu were left at the school gate. Tan Xiu looked at Wang Hu's curious face and then pointed to his Mercedes-Benz SUV and smilingly said, "Take me to the nearby bank. I'll withdraw the cash and give it to you. It's a total of 60,000 yuan, right? Are you really willing to give us so much money, brother?" asked Wang Hu excitedly. "What I, Tan Xiu, value the most is my promise." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "I may not be the emperor and I'm not a man of my word, but I always mean what I say." Wang Hu pinched the corner of his clothes and firmly nodded. "I believe you, brother. Even the policemen in the Public Security Bureau call you leader in front of you. You must be a very powerful person." "That's right. Can you tell me about Ah Lang's situation?" asked Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Wang Hu hesitated for a moment before he shook his head and said, "You're our moneybags, so I just mentioned Ah Lang. Else, we would never reveal his identity to outsiders. I know you're a good person, brother, but don't force me." Tan Xiu nodded and lightly smiled. "I won't force you. It's just that I have good intentions, else I wouldn't need to know about a stranger." "Good intentions?" Wang Hu looked at Tan Xiu with a puzzled expression. "You said before that Ah Lang is in poor health," said Tan Xiu. "Coincidentally, one of my identities is a Chinese medicine practitioner in the Chinese medical field." "It's not that I don't believe you, brother." Wang Hu shook his head and said, "It's just that Ah Lang's physical condition is very special. We found a lot of doctors for him, even the big hospitals in the city and the province. But none of them can cure his illness. You often go to the hospital and have seen a lot of doctors, so you should know about the divine doctors in the Chinese medical field, right?" Tan Xiu smiled. "I've heard of them. There are very few divine doctors in China, but all of them have very powerful medical skills." Wang Hu nodded. "It's a pity that we can't find them. Even if we can find them, we can't afford to hire them. My name is Tan Xiu." Tan Xiu smiled. "You should have the internet on your mobile, right? You can search my name on it." Tan Xiu? Wang Hu faintly felt that the name was somewhat familiar. He seemed to have heard it somewhere, but he couldn't recall it for a while. He quickly typed the 2 words according to Tan Xiu's instruction. Soon he saw countless keywords of the name Tan Xiu. When he clicked on one of them and read it a few times, he suddenly exclaimed, You're the young divine Dr. Tan Xiu of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Brother, you didn't lie to me, did you?" "What did I lie to you about?" asked Tan Xiu with a smile. Wang Hu suddenly realized that the man didn't say anything at all. He just said his name. Recalling that the legendary divine doctor was right in front of him, Wang Hu's lips trembled with excitement. He grabbed Tan Xiu's arm and said, "You're a divine doctor, brother. I believe you. I don't want the money. I don't want the 60,000 yuan. My life is yours as long as you can cure Ah Lang. You should take me to see him if you want me to cure his illness, right?" said Tan Xiu. "By the way, tell me about his situation on the way." All right. Wang Hu rubbed his hands and nodded with excitement. Nearby, a dilapidated courtyard. When Tan Xiu arrived with Wang Hu, more than a dozen hooligans with weapons in their hands quickly surrounded them. When they saw Tan Xiu, Wang Long, who was their leader, hurriedly said, "Why did you bring him here, brother?" "Ah Lang said that we're not allowed to bring strangers here. Divine Dr. Tang is not an outsider. He's the famous young divine doctor," said Wang Hu. "He said he's willing to treat Ah Lang's illness, so I brought him here to have a try." "Divine doctor? Young divine doctor?" Just as more than a dozen people were confused, a teenager suddenly exclaimed, "I remember him. He's the famous young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. I've seen the video of him treating patients and saving people. It's him, that's right. Curing and saving people is a doctor's duty," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Divine doctor is just a title given to me by everyone. Anyways, take me to see Ah Lang." On the way here, Wang Hu had told Tan Xiu some things about Ah Lang. It turned out that Ah Lang originally had 4 brothers, and he was the 4th one. All of them were street children who started picking up food from garbage dumps at the age of 4. Later on, they kept fighting with others for food, so much so that 2 of his 3 elder brothers were killed by others, while the eldest one was sent to prison. At that time, Lang was only 12 years old. At his age, he used his wisdom, righteousness, and loyalty to gather a group of street children like him to take root and sprout in this place. Lang was very smart and had a godlike mind. Therefore, through his calculations, the group of street children got a lot of money, and Lang even asked them to go to school. As the years passed, more and more teenagers gathered around. Lang was already 17 years old this year, and the number of street children following him had increased to more than 200 people. These teenagers were all poor children living at the bottom of the world. It was Lang who gave them food, clothes, and a place to live. He also made sure that they could go to school. Usually, everyone lived in different places, but as long as Lang gave the order, everyone could gather in a short time. Unfortunately, 2 years ago, when Lang was 15 years old, he had a high fever because of a serious cold. Although the fever later subsided, he had a lot of abscesses on his body and was paralyzed in bed. Although Lang had been giving advice to his brothers so that they could study and make money at the same time, the amount of money they earned was much less than before. Therefore, among the more than 200 people, more than 100 people voluntarily gave up studying and began to think of ways to make money. They were willing to do hard and tiring work just to make money to treat Lang. In their hearts, even though Lang was older than many of them, he was their backbone and the boss in their eyes. Cough, cough. As soon as Tan Xiu followed Wang Hu into the courtyard, he heard violent coughing coming from the house. Wang Hu rushed into the room and saw Lang lying on the bed in the corner of the dark room, coughing. Lang, how are you? Are you feeling unwell again? On the bed, Lang's coughing was much softer. He gasped for a few breaths, raised his arm with great difficulty and weakly said, "I'm fine. Give me some water. As long as life lasts, the outbreak will never end. I'm seeking monthly votes for the last 2 days." Chapter 1206. Tan Xiu quietly observed the pale and frail young man lying on the bed. His face was flushed, blue veins throbbing on his forehead, and his hair was drenched in sweat. Yet, his eyes were extraordinarily calm, like a pool of stagnant water. Even if a gust of wind swept past, it wouldn't cause the slightest ripple. Wisdom. Tang Xiu took out a cigarette and lit it up, causing Lang, who was on the bed, to look at him. After staring blankly for a while, Lang struggled to get up from the bed under Tang Xiu's gaze and Wang Hu's support. He then sat on the edge of the bed, tidied up his clothes, put on his slippers, and walked a few steps towards Tang Xiu. "Should I address you as Divine Dr. Tang? Or should I call you Boss Tang?" A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he smilingly asked, "What do you want to call me?" Lang pondered for a moment and said, "I think it's most appropriate to address you as Divine Dr. Tang for me, whereas my brothers call you Boss Tang." "Why do you say that?" The smile on Tan Xiu's face deepened. Lang clenched his fist and coughed twice. Then he slowly said, "I'm sick, and you're the famous young divine doctor in the Chinese medicine field. You can cure my illness, so it's most appropriate to address you as Divine Dr. Tang. My brothers are very poor. They have no problems to eat and wear warm clothes for the time being, but their studies will be delayed and will be seriously affected in the future. But you're the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation with hundreds of millions of wealth. They will have a bright future if you can lend them a helping hand. Hence, addressing you as Boss Tang is the most appropriate for my brothers." Tan Xiu calmly nodded and asked, "Then, what do you want to address me as?" Lang thought for a moment and answered, "Divine Dr. Tang." The smile on Tan Xiu's face turned thicker. The problem he just gave Lang was related to these two titles. If he addressed him as Divine Dr. Tang, it meant that he attached great importance to himself, whereas if he addressed him as Boss Tang, it meant that he attached great importance to his brothers. However, there were exceptions. Tan Xiu blew out a smoke ring and asked, "Give me a reason." Lang said, "My brothers have nothing to worry about, but I may die soon. I'll have to face death with regret and unwillingness. If you can cure me, I am sure I can give my brothers a bright future. Instead of handing them over to someone else, I might as well take control of them." Tan Xiu took out a cigarette from the pack and flicked it into Ah Lang's hand. Then he asked, "The last question. If you can answer it and satisfy me, I'll treat you for free. At the same time, I'll also give you a great opportunity and an opportunity for your little brothers." Ah Lang's expression shifted and he said, "Please speak, Divine Dr. Tang." Tan Xiu said, "If you become a member of the State Department, you will have a high position and hold great power. Even your decision can determine the life and death of countless people. In such a situation, you will have enemies invading your country, while on the other side are your brothers who have gone through fire and water with you. They are being hunted down endlessly and may be killed at any time. In such a situation, will you defend your country and resist the foreign enemies, or will you save your brothers?" Ah Lang furrowed his brows. He had never thought about this issue before. Now that he was suddenly faced with a choice, he needed to think about it seriously. Time fleeted by. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 minutes had passed. During these 20 minutes, he was constantly struggling, thinking, and struggling. In the current situation, he would choose his brothers regardless of everything, because his brothers were the people closest to him in this world. However, the struggle in his heart became more intense once he put himself into the world Tan Xiu mentioned. Puff Ah Lang's body temperature kept rising and he spurted out a mouthful of blood. If it wasn't for Wang Hu's quick reaction, he would have fallen to the ground. With a calm expression, Tan Xiu looked at Ah Lang's increasingly unsightly expression and lightly said, "I'm still waiting for your answer." Ah Lang raised his head with difficulty and stared at Tan Xiu. With a slightly hoarse voice, he said, "I'm in charge of politics. My duty is to protect the country, so I must protect the lives of countless people. My brothers are in danger and I want to save them, but I won't ruin the fate of my country because of my selfish brotherly feelings. If my brothers die in battle, I'll personally avenge them and go to their graves to apologize. I believe they can understand me even if they die in battle." A bright smile appeared on Tan Xiu's handsome face as he stepped forward to support Ah Lang's body. His fingers clasped the man's wrist as he sensed the condition inside his body and smilingly said, "Pack up and leave with me. It's easy to get 1,000 troops, but it's hard to find a good general. Even if you get 1,000 troops, you still won't be able to become an Iron Lion without a good commander. Tan Xiu need you." Ah Lang stared blankly at Tan Xiu and asked, "What do you want me to do, sir?" The smile on Tan Xiu's face slowly disappeared and was replaced with an incomparably solemn expression. "I want you to help me lead the Legion and become a commander admired by hundreds of millions of people. As long as you can complete my test and rise to a level I'm satisfied with, glory, splendor, wealth, and rank in the future will be a trivial matter. You'll have incomparable power and endless lifespan. As long as you want it and I can do it, I'll satisfy you." "Are you teasing me?" asked Ah Lang with a strange expression. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and released his energy to instantly wrap Wang Hu and send him out of the room. Immediately after, the door and windows of the room were closed in an instant. Tan Xiu then took out a bottle of holy healing medicine from his interspatial ring and released his primal chaos force to wrap Ah Lang. He then stuffed the holy healing medicine into the man's mouth and used his primal chaos force to catalyze the efficacy of the medicine and help him recuperate. He was enlightened. Tan Xiu's strength had greatly increased, so it was now a piece of cake for him to easily change a person's physique. In his opinion, Ah Lang's condition was caused by the excessive consumption of his mental energy, which led to a high fever and worsened his health. Endure it. If you want to become a superior person, you must endure the hardships. No matter how painful and torturous it is, you must endure it for me. Tan Xiu's voice was directly transmitted to the depths of Ah Lang's mind. Although his body was hovering in midair and trembling violently, Tan Xiu didn't have the slightest pity in his eyes. In his opinion, this was Ah Lang's fortune. It was a great fortune that hundreds of millions of humans, immortals, and fiends wanted but couldn't get. Time fleeted by. 2 hours later, a glint flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. As Ah Lang let out a miserable howl, Tan Xiu instantly retracted his hand. After withdrawing all the energy he added to Ah Lang's body fell heavily on the bed. He calmly waited. Half a minute later, Lang struggled to get up from the bed with a dizzy and blurred vision. When the pain that made him wish he was dead receded like the tide, he was shocked to find that he could feel power coming from all parts of his body. Even his body temperature kept rising. Gradually, he jumped off the bed and clenched his fists, punched the air twice and kicked a few times. Then, he looked up at Tang Xiu with disbelief and murmured, "My body is different from before." "Of course it's different," said Tang Xiu with a faint smile. "I've spent a lot of effort on you. It would be like seeing a ghost if it's still the same. A holy healing pill, a drop of fierce beast's blood essence, a drop of body refining liquid, and a snake orchid grass. Even an expert will be able to reach a higher level after using these things." Lang suddenly recalled what happened before and stepped back a few steps. His eyes were full of vigilance as he asked in a deep voice, "Who exactly are you? Have you forgotten?" Tang Xiu chuckled. "You called me Divine Dr. Tang before." "That's not right." Lang shook his head. "If you're just a divine doctor, you absolutely can't do those things." Tang Xiu thought for a while and said, "I'll give you a test now. I'll tell you if you can pass it smoothly. If you can't, then you're not qualified to know my true identity for the time being." "What test?" "I'll take it." Lang hesitated for a moment before he nodded. Tang Xiu took out a book from his interspatial ring and threw it to Lang, saying, "You should be literate. This is a cultivation art. My requirement for you is very simple. There are a total of 4,786 characters in this cultivation art, excluding the punctuation marks. If you can memorize all 4,786 characters in half an hour and recite them directly, you'll pass the first small test." "More or less." Lang nodded and took the cultivation technique. He looked at the title on the cover, Soul, Heart, and Spirit Refining Art. Then he flipped to the first page of the book. What he saw made him dumbfounded and surprised. "Now the countdown begins," said Tang Xiu. "I can't do it." Lang shook his head. "It wouldn't be too much pressure for me if this was written in common vernacular, and I could barely do it if I tried my best. But this is written in classical Chinese, and some of the characters are rare. I can't do it." Tang Xiu's face turned cold and he said in a deep voice, "Remember one thing from now on. You're a man, and a man should never say that he can't do it. You must try it no matter how difficult it is. Even if you fail 10,000 times, you must try it." Lang stared blankly at Tang Xiu and suddenly knelt directly in front of Tang Xiu. He looked up and said, "I'll remember it. Can you accept me as your student?" Tang Xiu gently waved his hand and a stream of energy dragged Lang up from the ground. Then he lightly said, "I won't accept you as my student if you can pass this test smoothly. I'll accept you as my disciple. A teacher may have many students, but a master doesn't have many disciples." Chapter 1207. Lang's heart pounded as he pondered over Tang Xiu's words. He had studied before, and at the age of 17 this year, he had learned all the subjects from elementary school to high school in only 5 years. He was a genius with an extremely strong memory and comprehension ability. Therefore, he could tell the meaning of Tang Xiu's words. There was an ancient saying that a master for a day is a father for life. A master was not a teacher who welcomed and sent away his students in batches. A master was like a family member or a father. A master and a disciple were the closest people to each other in the truest sense. "I'll give it a try." A resolute look appeared in Lang's eyes. 4 minutes have passed in an hour and 60 minutes, said Tang Xiu with a faint smile. "In other words, you only have 56 minutes left." Lang's expression changed. He immediately sat down and concentrated on memorizing the contents of the soul refining, heart refining, and spirit refining art. However, after a few minutes, a look of joy appeared on his thin face. This was because he discovered that his memory was much better than before. In the past, he would need to expend a great deal of effort to read 10 lines at a glance. But now, his memory kept getting stronger and his thinking became sharper. He could even easily memorize the content he just glanced at. "My brain has become more powerful." After realizing this, Lang immediately calmed his mind and continued to read the book with rapt attention. 40 minutes later, Lang finished reading the last word of the book and recited the entire content of the cultivation art in his mind. He found that he couldn't remember some parts clearly, so he flipped through it again and closed the book, saying, "I've finished reading it." "You've memorized it?" asked Tan Xiu. "I can recite the entire content now." Lang nodded. A smile appeared on Tan Xiu's face. He turned around and walked to the only broken chair in the room and sat down. Then he shook his head and said, "No need. I've been here for a long time and I've transformed your body, so I'm very thirsty now. I'll get you some tea." Lang turned around and walked a few steps. Suddenly, he came to a halt and a look of ecstasy flashed in his eyes. He quickly poured a cup of tea and ran to Tan Xiu. He directly knelt on the ground and raised the cup with both hands. "Please have some tea, master." Tan Xiu took the teacup but was not in a hurry to drink the tea. Instead, he said with a smile, "It seems that there is still a little to go before the formal apprenticeship ceremony." Lang kowtowed 3 times and then raised his head to look at Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu nodded in satisfaction and drank the hot tea in his cup with a smile. He then helped him up from the ground and asked, "What's your surname?" "I don't have a surname." Lang shook his head. "Neither me nor my 3 older brothers have a surname." Tan Xiu asked, "I have heard a little about you. Now tell me about your situation." "I'm fine, master," said Lang bitterly. "It's just that I had 3 older brothers when I was young, and 2 of them died. My eldest brother is now in prison and I'm afraid he won't be able to come out for the rest of his life. As a matter of fact, they're not my blood brothers. Even my closest brothers don't know the real relationship between the 4 of us." "Tell me about it." Tan Xiu nodded. "We used to live in an orphanage," said Lang. "We were all abandoned when we were very young. Later on, the people in the orphanage abused us all day long, so my eldest brother and second brother secretly took us out. Not long after we came out, our youngest sister died, leaving only the 4 of us. Later on, we fought with others for territory, food, and money. Finally, my second and third brothers were killed, and my eldest brother was also sent to prison." Tan Xiu nodded slowly and said thoughtfully, "What did your eldest brother do? Was he sent to prison?" Lang's eyes gleamed with hatred as he said, "I avenged my second and third brothers. As a matter of fact, I, Wang Hu, and Wang Long were also the ones who killed those bastards. My eldest brother took responsibility for all the crimes himself, so we could avoid going to prison together." "Which prison is your eldest brother in now?" asked Tan Xiu. "Qinchuan prison." Tan Xiu grabbed his mobile and dialed Zhu Long's number, saying, "I need to rescue someone from Qinchuan prison. He's just an ordinary person, but his younger brother is my disciple and he'll follow me in the future. So report this to Duanmu Lin and ask him if he's willing to release him." "Understood." Zhu Long agreed. Not long after he hung up, he called back. "How is it?" asked Tan Xiu after he picked up the call. "Director Duanmu has replied that there won't be any problem as long as you don't let the person stay in China and don't make any big moves in the next few years," said Zhu Long. "Aquababe has already left for Qinchuan prison. Did I tell her to send him to you? Or are you going to pick him up yourself?" Tan Xiu looked at Lang and asked, "What's your eldest brother's name?" "Adong," answered Lang. "What's his name?" asked Tan Xiu. "It's Adong," answered Lang. "The ID cards given to our class by the government are Lang and Adong." Tan Xiu forced a wry smile and told Zhu Long the name. Then he said, "Qinchuan prison is not far from where I am. We'll pick him up ourselves. Tell Aquababe to contact me when she arrives at Qinchuan prison." Tan Xiu put away his mobile and looked at the excited Lang. Then he lightly smiled and said, "You don't have a surname, so I'll give you another chance. If you can reach the late stage of Golden Core in the next 2 years, I'll give you a surname. It's my surname." "Tang?" Lang's eyes lit up and he heavily nodded. "I'll do my best according to your request, master." Can you really save my eldest brother from prison?" "We'll go to Qinchuan prison tonight to pick him up," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. However, before we pick him up, I have something to ask you. Do you want to ask about my brothers, master? Asked Ah Lang. It's really easy to talk to you. Tan Xiu chuckled. Smart people are really likable. That's right, I just want to ask them. Since you've chosen to go with me, what about them? Do you want me to take them with me? Or do you want them to stay? Of course, I'll give each of them a sum of money if they stay. It's not a huge amount, but it's enough for them to live for more than a decade. I still want them to go with me if I can take them with me, master, said Ah Lang. Because they'll be very sad if I leave with you myself. Tan Xiu nodded and said, if that's the case, then take them with you. But before that, you need to ask their opinion and whether they want to go with you or not. All right. Outside the house. Wang Hu and Wang Long anxiously stood outside the door, their eyes constantly peering through the gap of the door. Although they couldn't see anything, they hoped to hear the voices inside. What's going on, brother? Did Divine Dr. Tang treat Ah Lang or not? Asked Wang Long anxiously. You ask me? Who am I supposed to ask? Wang Hu angrily retorted. I don't know what's going on. I was inexplicably thrown out all of a sudden. No, that's not it. At that time, I was standing next to Ah Lang just a second ago, and then I was inexplicably pushed out of the house by a gust of wind in the next second. Wang Long didn't believe it, but he didn't say anything. He felt that his big brother must have lost his mind, else it was impossible for him to spout such nonsense. Wang Hu paced back and forth and said, what the hell is going on? We've tried to rush in many times, but we just can't get in. What the hell is this thing that keeps bouncing us back again and again? The door was pushed open and Ah Lang, who no longer looked tired, came out with a beaming smile. When his eyes fell on Wang Hu and Wang Long, he loudly said, Ah Hu, Ah Long, you two immediately contact all the brothers and tell them to gather here. Half an hour. Tell them to get there within half an hour. How are you feeling, Ah Lang? Wang Long rushed over and asked loudly. Wang Hu, on the other hand, looked at Ah Lang with a strange expression. He clearly saw the sickly Ah Lang spurting out a mouthful of blood in front of him. How could he be fine in such a short period of time? Could it be that Divine Dr. Tang really has some miraculous medicine? Could it be that he can directly cure Ah Lang's illness? What happened, Ah Lang? Ah Lang spread his arms and clenched his fists as he loudly said, I'm fine now. I'm completely cured. Tell all the brothers to come here quickly. All right. Ah Hu looked ecstatic and immediately took out his mobile phone to dial a number. Tan Xiu stepped out of the room and looked at the smiling faces of the three youths. He secretly sighed inwardly. He was also a young man once, but he didn't have any sworn brothers who could go through life and death with him. Even in the immortal world, he was surrounded by a bunch of hedonistic sons of rich parents who committed all sorts of crimes and stirred up trouble every day. In times of danger, they vividly displayed the essence of the saying, everyone goes their own ways in the face of a disaster. Perhaps, those few in the Su family village can be considered my childhood brothers? But they're just, maybe. Tan Xiu forced a wry smile inwardly. In less than half an hour, more than 200 youths had arrived. From this point of view, Tan Xiu could see that Ah Lang's little brothers were really good. Seeing them cry, seeing them laugh, and seeing a group of people constantly thanking him, his heart, which had been sealed up for a long time, finally cracked open. He finally let go of the layer of airtight defense between his brothers and friends. Night fell. The 228 boys and girls, including Ah Lang, all gathered in the courtyard and outside the courtyard. All of them looked at Tang Xiu with anticipation in their eyes. Through Ah Lang, he learned two things. The first was that someone wanted them. From now on, they no longer had to run around for a living and no longer had to risk their lives for money. The second was that their big brother, Ah Dong, who was in prison, was rescued by this benefactor and would soon follow him to welcome his big brother. Chapter 1208. Qinchuan Prison. It was the largest prison in the entire western region. Almost all the mortals there were convicted felons, and there were nearly 10,000 of them. Here, Oxhead and Horseface were just small fries, while the devil incarnate was considered a heavyweight. Some of the prisoners on death row who were temporarily detained or those who were sentenced to death with a reprieve were simply lawless. In the depths of the prison, there were more than a dozen prisoners in the reinforced concrete cell, each of whom was a felon with a sentence of more than 20 years. 2 of them were even sentenced to death with a reprieve of 2 years. To put it bluntly, this kind of suspended death sentence was actually not a death sentence. As long as one behaved well, they would almost be sentenced to life imprisonment. Of course, if one's performance was outstanding, their sentence might even be commuted to imprisonment, and one day they might be able to step out of this prison. Clang! The cell door was opened and 2 prison guards appeared at the door. The middle-aged prison guard in front had a strange expression on his face. He glanced inside and said in a deep voice, "Ah Dong, pack your things and get ready to leave the prison." Inside, the dozen prisoners were collectively petrified. Even Ah Dong himself was stunned. His eyes blinked and his head was full of fog. What he committed was a capital crime. If it weren't for his young age, he would have been shot to death. Even if he behaved well after he came in, he still fought a few times, so his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. He knew very well that unless the state had a large-scale amnesty program that could reduce some of his sentence, he would never be able to go out in this life. Finally, a bearded middle-aged man in the cell with a naked upper body asked, "Did you make a mistake? Ah Dong's sentence is life imprisonment. How can he be released from prison?" Ah Dong also seemed to wake up from a dream and hurriedly said, "Captain, did you make a mistake? My sentence hasn't come to an end yet." The middle-aged prison guard lightly said, "I don't know the details. I just received an order from the warden to take you out. Cut the crap and quickly pack your things." Ah Dong's body shivered and he hurriedly rushed to his bed. After quickly packing his things, he suddenly froze and then threw all his things on the bed of the strong man and loudly said, "I'm going out, so why do I still need these broken things? Brother Huzi, Brother Yang, Old Taoist, and all the brothers and uncles, I will go out first. I will come back to see you later." The dozen prisoners quietly looked at Ah Dong. Suddenly, the strong man strode forward and hugged Ah Dong. He patted his shoulder and said in a deep voice, "We appreciate your kindness, but we never want to see you in prison again. Brother, have a safe journey." Immediately after, the others also came over and hugged Ah Dong, saying a few words of farewell. After a while, Ah Dong stood at the cell's door with a complicated expression on his face and said word by word, "Since big brothers and uncles don't want to see me in prison, then I won't come. But I, Ah Dong, promise that as long as I'm alive outside, I'll keep sending money and goods to you so that you can enjoy life inside." Finished. He wiped away the trace of tears at the corner of his eyes and resolutely turned around to walk outside. After passing through a long corridor and turning a dozen or so passageways, when he passed by the square, he saw a woman with her hands behind her back. She was not tall, but she had an elegant appearance. Why is there a woman in the men's prison? And it's a woman who isn't wearing a police uniform? Ah Dong thought to himself thoughtfully. He had been in prison for some years and was now 21 years old. He was no longer a hot-headed youth who only knew how to fight bravely and fiercely. He had learned a lot of things inside, so he felt that the woman's appearance was very unusual. It was just as unusual as when he was suddenly released. What puzzled him was that the woman standing in the square unexpectedly walked slowly in the same direction as him. When he came to the prison's gate, the woman had already circled here. "Who are you?" Ah Dong realized that the reason he could get out of prison now was probably related to the woman in front of him. Aquababe lightly glanced at him and said, "You don't need to know who I am. You're not qualified to know who I am right now. My mission is to come here and take you out of prison. As for your files, they've all been erased. You will no longer exist in this prison or in the entire country. Let's go. Someone is waiting for you outside." "Someone is waiting for me outside?" Ah Dong looked at the big iron gate. When the 2 prison guards opened the gate, Ah Dong nearly ran out. But when he saw the scene outside, he felt as though he was struck by lightning and stood there in a daze. He saw more than 200 youths standing on the spacious and straight road outside the gate, and the one at the front was his younger brother, who had no blood relation with him. "Brother, Ah Lang staggered a few steps and heavily knelt on the ground 7 or 8 meters away from Ah Dong, calling out in a trembling voice. "Brother!" More than 200 youths shouted in unison and deafening voices. More than a dozen youths at the front burst into tears and also knelt on the ground with Ah Lang. Ah Dong couldn't help but burst into tears. He dashed to Ah Lang's front and also knelt on the ground. He directly hugged Ah Lang and sobbed, "I missed you very much, brother. I was very worried about you." Ah Lang wiped his tears and desperately shook his head. "I'm fine, brother. I'm really fine. I couldn't come here to see you for half a year due to some accidents. But now you're finally out of this place. We brothers will never be separated again. We'll never be separated again." Ah Dong firmly nodded and hugged Ah Lang with more strength. Behind them, more than a dozen youths staggered and rushed over. They surrounded Ah Dong and Ah Lang and hugged their brothers with their small palms. Eventually, more than a dozen of them hugged each other, creating a heart-wrenching scene. Finally, Ah Lang wiped the tears on his face and pulled Ah Dong to stand up. Then he said, "Brother, it's all because of my master that I'm able to rescue you from prison. I'll take you to see him." "Your master?" Ah Dong's heart trembled. He realized that his younger brother's master must be a great figure in Huaxia. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to rescue him from the prison so easily even though he was already sentenced to a heavy sentence. After a while, the two brothers came to Tan Xiu. Ah Lang pulled Ah Dong to kneel down and kowtowed 3 times to Tan Xiu. Then he crawled up and said, "This is my master, brother. He cured me of my illness and made me healthy again. Now that I've rescued you, we'll follow my master from now on." Ah Dong looked at Tan Xiu's young face and hesitated for a moment before saying, "Big brother, my life is yours from now on. I'm Ah Lang's master, yet you call me big brother?" Tan Xiu let out a strange smile. "Your seniority is much lower than mine." Ah Dong stared blankly and awkwardly said, "Then I'll also call you master." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "I'm very strict when it comes to accepting disciples. I won't accept you as my disciple unless you have a certain aspect that makes me pay attention to you. From now on, you can call me boss just like the others." Having said that, Tan Xiu turned around and pointed to several buses behind them. Then he lightly said, "Ah Lang needs to go with me to do something. All of you get on those buses and the driver will take you to Jingmen Island's Everlasting Feast Hall. You'll stay there for the time being. Someone will take care of your daily life and help you with your studies." "I want to be with Ah Lang," said Ah Dong hurriedly. "You can't stay together for the time being because you're no longer worthy to be with Ah Lang," said Tan Xiu lightly. "Do keep in mind that you must undergo training if you want to be with him. Only outstanding people are qualified to be with Ah Lang because he's my disciple, Tan Xiu." "What kind of training are we going to undergo?" asked Ah Dong hurriedly. "You won't understand even if I tell you now," said Tan Xiu lightly. "Don't ask and don't talk. Get on the bus and go to Jingmen Island. I'm sure you'll see Ah Lang soon if you work hard." Ah Lang didn't know what arrangement Tan Xiu had for him. But since the man could cure him and rescue his big brother from prison, Ah Lang wouldn't go against Tan Xiu's order. He nodded to Ah Dong and said, "Big brother, just listen to my master. He's a good man and will never harm us. I'm looking forward to the day we meet again." Ah Dong nodded without a word and said, "We'll try our best, boss." Tang Xiu waved his hand and watched as more than 200 youths boarded several cars. He then smiled at Aquababe who came over and said, "Thanks a lot for your help this time." Aquababe shook her head and suddenly asked, "What if I also want to be like them and receive your so-called training? Can I?" Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment and was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. "Are you kidding me, Aquababe? You're a dignified ability user. What's the point of training with a group of kids? I want to cultivate. I want to become a cultivator," said Aquababe seriously. The smile on Tan Xiu's face disappeared and he frowned. "You're a member of the Special Abilities Bureau, an ability user. If you choose to follow me, it'll be tantamount to me poaching Duan Mulin. I naturally have a way to get out of the Special Abilities Bureau as long as you promise me, Tan Xiu," said Aquababe. Tan Xiu gave it a thought and shook his head. I can't promise you for the time being, I'm sorry. Aquababe looked disappointed and hesitantly asked, Can you give me a reason? You're a member of the Special Abilities Bureau, which means you're also a Chinese, said Tanshio. I can't trust you for the time being, and I don't want my Tang sect to have someone from the state. You should be able to understand that, right? Aquababe was silent for a while before she nodded and said, I understand. But time reveals a man's heart. I hope I can prove with facts that I really want to cultivate and become stronger. I'm not a spy and I won't become a traitor. It's the last 2 days of the month. Quiet Night has been breaking out this month, so I'll grab your monthly votes to support you _. Chapter 1209. On the wide highway, the black Mercedes-Benz SUV was like a wild horse out of control, speeding forward crazily. Tan Xiu, who was driving, wore a smile on his face while glancing at Ah Lang in the back passenger seat from time to time. He had been driving for more than 10 hours since he left Qinchuan prison. During these hours, Tan Xiu gave Ah Lang a total of 6 books, all of which were related to cultivation, but none of them were cultivation techniques. 6 books. Ah Lang had finished reading all of them in 10 hours and could recite them all. Even though his mind was now clear and his memory had been enhanced, he still felt a bit overwhelmed. Huff! After Ah Lang closed the book in his hand, he secretly exhaled and turned to Tan Xiu, saying, I've finished reading and memorized all of them, master. Just like the previous 5 books, there are many parts that I don't understand. Ask away, Tan Xiu said with a smile. Ah Lang closed his eyes and summarized it inwardly. Then, he began to ask about the contents of the books that he couldn't understand. Soon, nearly an hour passed by. I understand it all, master. A bright smile appeared on Ah Lang's thin face. He looked a bit tired, but he still felt very satisfied. Take a nap, Tan Xiu said. We still have a long way to go, so you can continue studying after you've had a good rest. All right. Ah Lang was indeed very tired. He closed his eyes and fell asleep shortly after. A few hours later, Tan Xiu passed by a city and directly got off the highway. He found a bookstore in the city through the GPS. After parking the car outside, he went inside and bought a lot of books, most of which were about the art of war and Taoist canon. Then he resumed his journey. While Tang Xiu was resting in the service area thousands of miles away, Ah Lang, who had been sleeping for nearly 10 hours, woke up from his deep sleep. Where are we now, master? Up ahead is Shaanxi Province's provincial capital, Anxi City. It's more than 4,000 kilometers away, yet we're only halfway there, said Tan Xiu with a smile. You didn't rest all the way? Asked Ah Lang in surprise. Tan Xiu smiled faintly and said, For me, it's not a problem even if I don't eat, drink, or sleep for 10 days or half a month. Ah Lang wore a look of worship and said, I really want to see how powerful you are, master. You really want to see it? Tan Xiu asked with a smile. Of course. Ah Lang nodded and said, I already know what cultivation is all about. I also know the cultivation realms and how powerful the cultivators in each realm are. But that knowledge is all from books. I haven't seen it with my own eyes, so I'm not sure. Tan Xiu smiled, restarted the car, and quickly drove on the highway. After driving for a few minutes, Tan Xiu found that there were no cars in front or behind them. Only then did he smile and said, Watch carefully. In an instant, Tan Xiu kept sending out hand seals. He was still in the off-road vehicle, but the vehicle shot forward like an arrow. Its speed was unbelievably fast. Ah Lang, who was sitting in the passenger seat, could only feel the scenery on both sides passing by, and he couldn't even see what was on either side. A horrified look appeared on Ah Lang's face. When his eyes fell on the dashboard, he immediately asked, What's going on, master? Why was the speed displayed on the dashboard 0? Is it because it's too fast that it's off the charts? Off the charts? Tan Xiu was somewhat at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. He snappily said, If a car can be driven to the limit, then that's a goddamn thing. I used a magic spell to make the off-road vehicle fly up and move forward while maintaining a distance of a few centimeters from the ground. Lang stared blankly for a while before he revealed a worshipful expression and said, "You're really amazing, Master." The corners of Tan Xiu's lips curled up as he smiled. "You haven't seen the real deal." His voice fell. A surging aura erupted from Tan Xiu's body. Almost in an instant, the car and the two people inside had already appeared more than 10 kilometers away. When the tires landed on the ground again, the car's speed dropped rapidly and finally maintained a speed of 120 kilometers per hour. Lang shook his head dizzily. When he saw the scenery outside again, his lips trembled a few times and he asked, "Master, can I be as powerful as you if I practice hard in the future?" "You'll definitely be 1,000 times or even 10,000 times more powerful than me if you practice hard," said Tan Xiu. "At that time, you'll be able to control an aircraft carrier and fly in the universe, let alone a car. Alright, there are some books in the back seat. It's time for you to read them." Along the way, Tan Xiu didn't rush to go back. His cell phone rang several times, all of which were from Duanmu Lin, but he didn't answer it. He didn't want to be the enemy of the country, but he also didn't want to be watched. His action was actually a silent protest to Duanmu Lin. If he hadn't withdrawn the intelligence personnel stationed in the periphery of Longquan Mountain, he would have refused to see Duanmu Lin and directly shelved his previous plan. Finally, just as Tan Xiu's car returned to Shanghai, he received a call from Chen Xiaohua and learned from him that all the intelligence personnel of the country had been evacuated. At the Everlasting Feast Hall. When Tan Xiu arrived, he found that although the Everlasting Feast Hall was still operating as usual, there were some suspicious people around. These people faintly exuded a fierce aura, indicating that they were very powerful experts. At the very least, each of them was no less powerful than a martial arts grandmaster. "You finally showed up, kid." Duanmu Lin's figure appeared outside the restaurant's entrance and looked at Tan Xiu, who just got off the car. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said to Lang, who just got off the front seat, "Go inside and find a place to eat. We'll talk about something." "Alright." Lang complied and ran into the gate. Tan Xiu shifted to Duanmu Lin and lightly said, "Senior Duanmu, why bother looking for me since you don't trust me? I don't think it's necessary to carry out the plan we talked about before." "Are you done yet?" Duanmu Lin helplessly said. "I've withdrawn all the intelligence personnel in Longquan Mountain and even helped you get a man out of Qinchuan prison. Isn't that enough to compensate you? Also, my men have sent all the criminals who often block the road and rob people to prison. I'm afraid it won't be easy for them to come out in this lifetime." Tan Xiu's expression eased a bit and he rolled his eyes. "Cut the crap. Have they come?" "Yeah, they're waiting for you." Duanmu Lin nodded. "Let's go." Tan Xiu followed Duanmu Lin into the Everlasting Feast Hall. For hours later, he left with Lang, who had eaten and drunk to his heart's content and had been reading for hours. It was a negotiation. Tan Xiu gave up the control of the base because an old man reminded him that it was meaningless for him to work hard to control the overall situation. He would leave sooner or later. Those high-tech products, interstellar fleets, and space troopers were bound to become the state's machines. Base address, Taklamakan Desert. Main controller, Duanmu Lin. With a smiling face, Duanmu Lin escorted Tan Xiu out of the gate. Then, he said with a smile, "We'll go to the 3-star vestige half a year later. We'll get that interstellar battleship and move all the high-tech machines inside to the Taklamakan Desert." "You'd better build the underground base in the desert within half a year," said Tan Xiu lightly. "If you don't fulfill your promise, I'm afraid you'll lose your position as the person in charge." Duanmu Lin grinned and said, "Don't worry. I guarantee that I'll complete the task." Tan Xiu didn't bother to respond to Duanmu Lin. After leaving with Lang, he slowly said, "I'm sure you've heard what I discussed with them today, right? Tell me, who got the upper hand in the end?" "Mutual benefit," answered Lang. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction and said, "That's right. It's indeed a mutual benefit. China will provide me with a steady stream of cultivation resources and open the door to all kinds of things, which will be very beneficial to us. As for those high-tech technologies, they're not that important. Keep in mind that your own strength is the most real foundation. When you're strong enough to blow up an interstellar battleship with a punch and destroy a galaxy with a kick, you'll understand that no matter how powerful technology is, it's not as important as your own strength. I understand what you mean, Master, said Ah Lang. I'll be very powerful in the future. Tan Xiao slightly smiled and said, someone will take you to Nine Dragons Island tomorrow. There will be specialized people to train you. Once you complete the first stage of the training, you'll be sent to another place. Ah Lang, my mission for you is to break through to the spirit formation stage within 10 years. 10 years? A resolute look appeared in Ah Lang's eyes as he firmly nodded and said, I'll do my best, Master. Blue Star Villa Complex. After returning with Ah Lang, Tan Xiao took a comfortable bath and then changed into clean clothes. Just as he was about to call Mu Weining and tell her that he was back, his cell phone suddenly rang. Something happened to Chen Zhizhong, Sect Master. Gu Xiaoshue's voice came from the phone. Tan Xiao furrowed his brows and asked in a deep voice, what exactly happened? I don't know the specifics, said Gu Xiaoshue. But Chen Zhizhong left Nine Dragons Island early this morning. Our people found the speedboat he was driving alone on the 9th barren island. There were traces of fighting and dozens of foreign corpses there, but there was no trace of Chen Zhizhong. I suspect that he might have been taken away. A cold glint flashed in Tang Xiu's eyes. He had always been protective of his disciples, and Chen Zhizhong was his disciple. But now, he was taken away from the 9th deserted island. This was undoubtedly touching his reverse scale. Also, Chen Zhizhong should be perfectly aware that no one could take him away as long as he stayed on the 9th barren island. But why did he leave Nine Dragons Island? To give the enemy a chance to take advantage of him. Chapter 12:10. He hurried to the 9th deserted island. The scene of the battle was well protected by the Tang sect's outer members. Tan Xiu's expression slightly changed after he set foot here because he could vaguely feel a trace of shaman power lingering in the air. The Dark Shaman Clan? Or the Celestial Wizard Clan? Tan Xiu took a deep breath. After pondering for a while, he finally ruled out the Dark Shaman Clan. After all, these corpses belonged to foreigners with blonde hair and blue eyes. They were not from the Dark Shaman Clan. Furthermore, those people from the Dark Shaman Clan knew his strength and dared not oppose the Tang sect. The Celestial Wizard Clan? Killing intent surged in Tan Xiu's heart. He summoned more than a dozen Tang sect's core disciples from Nine Dragons Island and issued an order to find Chen Zhizhong. However, 2 days later, all the Tang sect's disciples tried their best to search for him, but they couldn't find any clues. Even when the Tang sect's disciples received Tan Xiu's instruction to find the Darkwind organization for $100 million, they still couldn't get any information about him. Saipan. Master. Little Blind, who was walking on crutches and wearing black sunglasses, arrived under the escort of 2 Tang sect's disciples. Tan Xiu, who was at his wits' end at the moment, immediately frowned upon seeing Little Blind's arrival and asked, "Why are you here?" "I saw a bloody calamity on senior brother Chen a month ago," said Little Blind. "But I've always been curious. He's been staying in Nine Dragons Island, so how could he have such a calamity? Only now do I know the reason." "Why didn't you tell me about this in advance?" asked Tan Xiu with a slightly moved expression. "I can't see through your destiny, Master, so I didn't dare to tell you about it. Otherwise, you'll disturb senior brother Chen's destiny if you intervene," answered Little Blind honestly. "Can you find him?" asked Tan Xiu after thinking for a while. "I can't find him, but there's someone who can." Little Blind shook his head. "Who is it?" Tan Xiu's expression shifted. "I don't know who that person is, but I know he should be a wizard," said Little Blind. "His name should have the word Xing in it." "Star?" Tan Xiu pondered for a moment before realizing the other party's identity. He took out his mobile and dialed the number of the Dark Shaman Clan's current patriarch, Xingluan. "Boss, are you looking for me?" Tan Xiu said, "My disciple, Chen Zhizhong, was taken away. I need to know his whereabouts." Xingluan was surprised and asked, "Who's so bold to capture someone from Tang sect?" Tan Xiu said, "I don't know, so I asked you to tell me." Xingluan forced a smile and said, "You don't think that I'm the one who sent my men to capture him?" Do you? I'm your man, and I'm Chen Zhizhong's partner. I have no reason to capture him. I know it's not you. It's not even someone from your dark shaman clan, said Tan Xiu. But the people who took him used witchcraft, so I was told that you could tell me something. Witchcraft? Xingluan thought for a moment and asked, where was Chen Zhizhong taken, boss? Island number 9. Tan Xiu said. I just remembered it. A group of people came to Tea Country 4 days ago. The leader of the group claimed to be from the Sacred Flame and wanted our Dark Shaman clan to help them with something big, said Xingluan hurriedly. I'm afraid of this Sacred Flame organization, so I don't want to deal with them, so I directly refused. Some of them are proficient in witchcraft. Tell me about this Sacred Flame organization, asked Tan Xiu. This Sacred Flame organization is very mysterious and is almost the same as the Darkwind organization, said Xingluan. But they don't belong to the intelligence-gathering category. Instead, they act like mercenaries. Countless experts from Sacred Flame will gather together once they receive a mission. If the target is too powerful, they will even invite some forces to join them. Usually, the members of Sacred Flame are scattered all over the world and live their own lives. The people from Sacred Flame who came to our Dark Shaman clan this time are almost all from Europe. How can I find this organization? Asked Tan Xiu. It's in Saipan's Demai area, said Xingluan. They told me that I can take my men to Clearstream Interpreter in Saipan's Demai area if I change my mind. I see. Tan Xiu hung up the phone and looked at Little Blind in front of him. How's your current cultivation? Late stage of foundation establishment, answered Little Blind. Your cultivation speed is a bit slow, said Tan Xiu with a frown. I only cultivate for a short time every day, master, said Little Blind hesitantly. I mainly cultivate my mental force, so my cultivation speed is a bit slow. How's the intensity of your mental force? Asked Tan Xiu with raised brows. I can see everything within a kilometer with my mental force alone, answered Little Blind. I can lift a 100-kilogram object. However, there are exceptions. If I'm in the sea, my mental force can cover everything within a radius of several kilometers and can even bind an adult blue whale. Tan Xiu was dumbfounded and looked at Little Blind incredulously. He never dreamed that his mental force cultivation would reach such a level in such a short time. In the immortal world, there were some people who specialized in cultivating their mental force to the point that they could make a planet explode and destroy a galaxy with just a thought. Therefore, such people were known as mental force saints. Could it be? Little Blind can also become a mental force saint in the future? Tan Xiu patted his shoulder and said, Your mental force cultivation is progressing at a godly speed. It's beyond my expectation. However, you can't spend a lot of time cultivating your mental force in the future because your own cultivation is also very important. Otherwise, your body won't be able to bear it when your mental force reaches a certain level. Besides, it'll also waste your constitution. Constitution? Is my constitution very good, master? Asked Little Blind, confused. Very good. Tan Xiu nodded and said, It's a once-in-a-lifetime one. Given your constitution, you'll be at least a golden core stage expert now if you cultivate diligently. It's recorded in the ancient books that the blood in your veins and the energy in your bones will never die. It's a once-in-a-lifetime ice body. The blood in your veins and the energy in your bones. If you cultivate diligently in the future, you may even become the most powerful person in the entire Tang sect. I'll listen to you, master, said Little Blind. I'll be able to protect you when I become the most powerful person in the future. Tan Xiu patted his shoulder and smilingly said, Protecting me is secondary. Your eyes will be able to see the light again as long as you can break through to the nascent soul stage. The reconstruction of your body at the nascent soul stage will no longer make you look like an 8 or 9-year-old anymore and restore you to your original age. See the light again? Little Blind was shaken inwardly and firmly nodded. I understand, master. As the 2 Tang sect disciples escorted Little Blind back to Nine Dragons Island, Tan Xiu took the rest of the Tang sect disciples and rushed to the Clearwater Translation Institute in Demai district of Saipan at a very fast speed. Halfway there, a group of intelligence personnel appeared in the vicinity of the Clearwater Translation Institute and continuously transmitted the situation there. Half an hour later, when Tan Xiu appeared outside the Clearwater Translation Institute, a Tang sect disciple silently appeared in front of him and respectfully reported, "We've figured out the situation inside, sect master. There are only 4 men and women staying here. One of them is the owner of this place, while the other 3 are experts from European countries. We were almost discovered by them when we sneaked inside to gather intelligence." "No need to hide anymore," ordered Tan Xiu in a deep voice. "Just rush inside and take them under control." "Understood." Dozens of figures flickered lightning fast and quickly appeared inside the Clearwater Translation Institute. After a fight, the 4 blonde and blue-eyed Caucasian men and women were seriously injured and captured by the Tang sect disciples. "Who the hell are you? You're trespassing on private property and violating the laws of our country," a tall blonde man angrily shouted. Tan Xiu walked to him and a dagger instantly appeared in his hand. A cold light flashed and the blonde man's ears were cut off. Amidst the man's heart-wrenching screams, Tan Xiu coldly asked, "Where's Chen Zhizhong?" The big man's expression changed and he immediately shook his head. "I don't know what you're talking about." Tan Xiu grabbed his arm and cut off his right hand with the dagger. Then he asked again, "You have a lot of body parts on you, so I'll have time to slowly interrogate you. I want to see how much pain you'll feel when I cut off your body parts one by one." "Kill me." The big man endured the heart-wrenching pain and roared loudly. "I'm proficient in more than 10,000 kinds of torture techniques." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "I can guarantee that you'll suffer a fate worse than death for the next 3 months. I want to know whether your bones are tough or my interrogation techniques are more powerful." Bim! Tang Xiu suddenly punched the big man's cheek. As his teeth were smashed, Tang Xiu punched him several times in a row and knocked all his teeth out. Then he sneered and said, "I told you that you'll never be able to kill yourself if I don't want you to die, even if you desperately want to commit suicide." "I'll tell you." The only female among the 4 shouted loudly with fear in her eyes. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and instantly cut off the big man's head with the dagger. Then he walked to the front of the beautiful woman and said, "You'll be very miserable if I'm not satisfied with your answer, 10,000 times worse than him." "That's right, I forgot to tell you that I also know some witchcraft arts. Even the dark shaman clansman and the patriarch of the clan are my subordinates. Therefore, many of my interrogation techniques are targeted at those who practice witchcraft arts." The beautiful woman couldn't help but shiver and hurriedly said, "It was the Nonagon Bulwark's master who invited us to do it. Chen Zhizhong's soul is very interesting, and the Nonagon Bulwark's master wants to refine his soul to enhance his own strength. We just received the money to do the job. This matter has nothing to do with our Sacred Flame organization. Today's 2nd chapter will be delivered, and there will be a 3rd chapter in the evening. It's the last 2 days." Chapter 12:11. "Where's the Nonagon Bulwark?" asked Tan Xiu coldly. "I don't know the specific location, but I know how to get there," said the bell. "It's the biggest port in Saipan, and there's a passenger ship there." After getting the information about the passenger ship from the bell, Tan Xiu nodded to Qi Nan at the side, signaling her to release the other 2 men from Sacred Flame. Then he looked at the bell and asked, "You should know about the situation in Nonagon Bulwark, right?" The bell felt relieved after seeing that her 2 companions had been released. She was really afraid that Tan Xiu would turn hostile and kill all 3 of them after getting the answer he wanted. Therefore, she didn't want to be in a gloomy mood and explained, "Nonagon Bulwark is located in the Pacific Ocean. It has a total of 9 islands with 9 villages on it. It's called the Nonagon Bulwark because the 9 islands are very close to each other." "Who are the people living in the Nonagon Bulwark?" asked Tan Xiu again. "Pirates," answered the bell. "Pirates?" Tan Xiu furrowed his brows. He didn't expect that the answer would be this, so he asked again, "Your Sacred Flames people actually accepted the pirates' commission? That's really interesting." "Our Sacred Flames motto is that we'll work for whoever pays us, regardless of the identity of the employer," said the bell. How many people does your sacred flame have? Asked Tan Xiu. What about their strength? The belle looked a bit proud as she said, Our sacred flame's strength is beyond the imagination of countless people. We have a total of 9 sacred flame orders, and the first one is the simplest mission. When the strongest 9 sacred flame orders are issued, all the members of the Sacred Flame Organization will appear to complete the mission together. A strange expression appeared on Tan Xiu's face as he asked, I need to know the price. The Nonagon Bulwark paid $100 million this time, which corresponds to the 5 Sacred Flame Orders of our Sacred Flame Organization, said the belle. The lowest price for a Sacred Fire insignia is only $100,000. The highest price for 9 Sacred Fire insignia is $10 billion. Tan Xiu was secretly shocked. He didn't expect that the Sacred Flame Organization, which he had just heard of, would cost $10 billion to obtain the highest level of the Sacred Flame Order. Were they worth that much money? The gorgeous woman looked at the contemplative Tan Xiu and suddenly said, Sir, I can tell you some more things. Ever since the establishment of our Sacred Flame Organization, we've activated 9 Sacred Flame Orders twice. The first time was during the Crusades. Back then, our Sacred Flame Organization played a huge role. Otherwise, the entire army of cultivators on the crusade would have been annihilated. The second time was 36 years ago. At that time, the Black Flag camp, which was in the limelight at its peak, was uprooted by us. In total, we eliminated 14,600 people from the Black Flag camp. The Crusades, Black Flag camp. Tan Xiu knew about these 2 major events, but he hadn't expected the Sacred Flame Organization to be involved in both of them, especially the second incident, which was actually done by the Sacred Flame Organization. Suddenly, a wonderful idea arose in his mind. He looked at the gorgeous woman and asked, What's your status in the Sacred Flame Organization? I'm the vice captain of the Saipan squad, Karen, answered the woman. I need your Sacred Flame's boss. If he can come to Saipan personally, I'm willing to pay $10 billion to activate the Sacred Flame Organization's 3rd Sacred Flame Order, said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. I'll give him 7 days. I'll return to Saipan 7 days later. An excited look appeared on the gorgeous woman's face as she hurriedly asked, Do you really want to activate the Sacred Flame Order? Of course. I can pay you $1 billion in advance, said Tan Xiu lightly. The gorgeous woman broke free from the Tang sect's disciple's hand, got up, and excitedly said, I'll immediately contact our Sacred Flame Organization's Vulcan once the $1 billion deposit is in my account. He's our boss. Our Sacred Flame Organization can do anything as long as we have money. We even dare to provoke the people from the 3 major organizations. Tan Xiu gave it a thought and suddenly asked, How many people from your Sacred Flame Organization are in Saipan? Or should I say, how many people from your organization can rush to Saipan in half a day? More than 200, answered the gorgeous woman. And all of them are experts. I'll give you an additional $5 billion. I'll give you half a day to follow me to the Nonagon Bulwark to rescue my disciple, Chen Zhizhong, and kill all the pirates there, said Tan Xiu. The gorgeous woman looked ecstatic and excitedly rubbed her hands. No problem. No problem at all. Everything is fine as long as we have money. You'll have to pay us $5 billion in advance. We can set off immediately once the money is in our account. Tan Xiu turned to look at Qi Nan and said in a deep voice, Contact Xiao Xue immediately and tell her to transfer $5 billion to the other party's account. But boss, this... Qi Nan hesitated. Execute it, said Tan Xiu. Understood. Qi Nan nodded helplessly. She asked for the Sacred Flame Organization's account and immediately left. Clearwater translator. In the courtyard, dozens of Tang sect experts were sitting cross-legged like stone statues. Tan Xiu was also sitting cross-legged on a stone platform, calmly watching the figures that flashed lightning fast appeared. There were black, white, and yellow people among them. Who are they, Karen? A burly black man with a stocky build appeared with dozens of experts. With a vigilant look on his face, he asked in a deep voice. They're the employers, Sir, too, answered Karen hurriedly. HQ has received $5 billion for 2 missions, said the black man in a deep voice. The first mission is to go to the Nanagon Bulwark and rescue Chen Zhizhong, whom we've captured. What's the second mission? I don't know about the second mission yet. Karen shook her head and said, but the other party has given us a deposit and wants us to open the 9 sacred flame tokens. Surtout, you're well aware that we must go all out as long as we open the 9 sacred flame tokens no matter what their request is. The black man's expression changed and he observed the Tang sect disciples sitting cross-legged in the courtyard again. His eyes then fell on Tan Xiao and he cupped his fists saying, "Are you the employer, sir?" Tan Xiao floated up and instantly appeared in front of the black man. He then nodded and said, "That's right. I am. When will the members of your Sacred Flame organization arrive? You must know that Chen Zhizhong will be in more danger for every minute we waste here." "Half an hour. We'll set off in half an hour at most," said the black man with a bit of respect in his eyes. He knew that the employer who could come up with $10 billion to issue the 9 sacred flame tokens must have a very terrifying status. Tan Xiao thought for a while and asked, "Answer me a question. How did you know where Chen Zhizhong is and how did you go there to capture him?" "It was a drop of blood," said the black man. "That drop of blood led us to that deserted island in the Pacific Ocean and we found Chen Zhizhong there. We didn't believe it at first, but after we arrived there, we finally believed it." "Where did that drop of blood come from?" asked Tan Xiao with a frown. "It was given by the employer, the Nanagon Bulwark's first master," answered the black man. Tan Xiao nodded without a word. He knew that Chen Zhizhong had been cast with a forbidden spell before. Not only was his memory obscured, but even his cultivation level had dropped, leaving him with only 1% of his former strength. At first, he thought that it was the bastard he killed. But now, it seemed that there was more to it than meets the eye. Half an hour later, more than 200 experts of the Sacred Flame organization had arrived. Tan Xiao secretly observed them and found that their overall strength was not strong. The strongest among them was probably only comparable to a Golden Core stage expert. Most of them were only comparable to Foundation Establishment stage experts, and a few of them were only comparable to Qi refining stage cultivators. At the port, a luxurious passenger ship was anchored on the shore, and a group of strong men was transporting goods to the ship. Many of them were dressed as tourists and were slowly boarding the ship. "Control them." Under Tan Xiao's order, the experts of the Sacred Flame organization and the Tang sect rushed toward the luxurious passenger ship. Around the luxurious passenger ship, numerous lightning-fast silhouettes emerged from the water and soundlessly boarded the ship, disappearing into the cabin. It was chaos. Half an hour later, all the tourists who boarded the ship were gathered on the deck. Most of the Nanagon Bulwark pirates on the ship were killed, while the rest were tied up and thrown into a hull inside the ship. "These tourists are actually traveling on a pirate ship?" Tan Xiao looked at the hundreds of tourists with a strange expression. He couldn't help but ask after seeing their shivering and fearful faces. "I just inquired about it. It's a local tour company in Saipan. I suspect that the tour company is in cahoots with the pirates of the Nanagon Bulwark," said Qinan. Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, "I'm starting to admire this pirate leader of the Nanagon Bulwark now. To think that he can openly kidnap tourists under disguise. I'm afraid that the fate awaiting these tourists will be very miserable once they are brought to the Nanagon Bulwark." "That's a very powerful means," said Qinan. "Yeah, it's very powerful." Tan Xiao nodded. Quickly, the captain of the passenger ship was brought to Tan Xiao. After he was forced to kneel, he glared at Tan Xiao with murderous eyes and shouted, "You dare to offend us, Nanagon Bulwark people? Your death has come. Our Nanagon Bulwark may be a pirate lair, but our strength is beyond your imagination." "Those people from the Nanagon Bulwark are indeed very powerful, boss," said Qinan. "More than a dozen of them are cultivators. They may not be very powerful, but they are all peripheral members. Their real core members rarely leave the Nanagon Bulwark." Tang Xiao sneered, "Only powerful people are worth my money, else I'll just be a sucker." Chapter 12:12. The luxurious passenger ship braved the wind and waves as it quickly sailed through the boundless sea. The 4 pirates in the cockpit were trembling with fear as they squatted in the corner under the custody of 2 Tang sect disciples. Most of the Tang sect's disciples knew how to operate a ship, so several of them easily set the course for them. All the tables and chairs in the huge entertainment hall were moved to the 4 corners, with hundreds of tourists sitting on the floor. More than 200 members of Sacred Flame were keeping an eye on them. All of their communication devices were searched and placed together. Standing in the corridor on the 2nd floor, Tan Xiu looked at the hundreds of tourists and lightly said, "You don't need to worry or be afraid. I can tell you responsibly that the original crew of this liner, including the attendants on board, are all pirates. Even the travel agency that introduced you to this liner is secretly colluding with the pirates. If it weren't for us, it wouldn't have taken you long to be taken to the pirates' lair. What awaits you at that time is a miserable and dark life without any daylight." "You're lying." A strong and dark-skinned man stood up. Although he was very afraid of the members of Sacred Flame who were glaring at him like tigers watching their prey, he suppressed his fear and raised his neck to say, "I'm a tour guide from the travel agency. I've been working here for 4 months. Thousands of tourists have taken this liner to travel to the surrounding islands. They even said that they had a great time after they came back." "Are you sure they have returned to Saipan?" asked Tan Xiu with raised brows. The man hesitated for a moment and said, "Of course they haven't returned to Saipan. This liner will stop at Cerulean Island and its destination is Cerulean Island. If you want to go back to Saipan, you'll need to take another liner." "Have you seen any tourists returning to Saipan during the 4 months you've been working in the travel agency?" asked Tan Xiu. The man hesitated for a moment and then said, "I haven't seen any of them, but they have left a lot of comments in the comments section of the travel agency, and almost all of them are favorable. We've put away your mobile phones. Do you think it'll be a problem if we use your phones to leave comments in the comments section?" asked Tan Xiu. The man was speechless. Tan Xiu asked again, "Since you are a tour guide, you should have followed this passenger ship out to sea, right?" The man shook his head and said, "I wasn't in charge of going out to sea in the past. This time, it's also because I had some conflicts with a colleague that our president asked me to come out and lead the team. It's also convenient for me to relax." "If my guess is correct, the colleague who had a conflict with you should have a good relationship with your president, right?" Tan Xiu sneered. "How do you know?" "They are relatives, but only distant relatives," the man said hesitantly. Tan Xiu sneered. "Is it that hard to guess? Your president didn't let you come out to lead the team to relax. Instead, he wanted to push you onto the path of death." The man shook his head and said, "I don't believe it." Tan Xiu turned to look at Qinan next to him and said, "Take him to find his mobile phone and let him call his president." "All right." Qinan replied and took the man to find his mobile phone. Before the man made the call, Tan Xiu said, "You only need to say 1 sentence to your president. Ask him why he lied to you. Then wait and see what he says. That's right, remember to turn on the loudspeaker and speak to the microphone. Let everyone listen to it." The man thought for a moment and immediately nodded to make the call. "You are already at sea, right, Chao Hui?" A man's voice came out of the phone. "Why did you lie to me, President?" the man asked aloud. After a dozen seconds of silence, the other party's cold voice came out. "I really don't know how they do things. They started to act so early. Chao Hui, since you already know, then this big daddy doesn't need to hide it from you and coax you. Motherfucker, I made you work in the travel agency so that you could attract tourists for me. Your business is just SOSO, but your ability to cause trouble is quite good. I've been wanting to kill you for a long time. Now that I've sent you to the ship, you can go to my hometown and enjoy yourself. Don't die too miserably. My brothers will let you enjoy yourself. Maybe your organs will be worth some money, ha." "What do you mean?" Chao Hui's complexion instantly turned as pale as paper as he angrily shouted. The hundreds of people in the cabins suddenly stirred up. They didn't speak, but those with a bit of brains realized that something was wrong. They didn't believe Tan Xiu's words before, but their minds began to waver after hearing the conversation between Chao Hui and the travel agency's president. The voice of the travel agency's president came out of the phone. What do you mean? Of course, I want to kill you and get some benefits. Our Nonagon Bulwark pirates, aside from robbing properties, also sell human beings and smuggle human organs. Don't worry, I'll inform our brothers on the island later to give you special care. When your organs are removed, I'll make you suffer more pain before you die. You bastard! Aren't you afraid of retribution? Chow Hui angrily shouted. Retribution? The travel agency's president let out a strange smile. Retribution? I've been doing it for several years, yet no retribution has fallen on me. What's more, we pirates are all desperados who put our lives on the line. Death is nothing to us. If there's retribution, feel free to greet me. But I can guarantee that you'll die faster than me. A lot faster. Ha! Chow Hui fiercely smashed his phone to the floor. After smashing it into pieces, he turned to look at the tourists sitting on the floor with fear written all over their faces. Then, he bitterly said, "To all the tourists I've received on this ship, I, Chow Hui, have never done anything insane in my life. But even though I don't know the truth this time, I still did something wrong. I apologize to you here. I can only apologize. Now you know that you've boarded a pirate ship, don't you?" Tan Xiu lightly said. "But you can rest assured that we've subdued all the pirates on this ship. The reason why we took you on this voyage was because we were afraid that some of you would inform us in advance. We'll naturally let you go after we annihilate those pirates. But before that, I hope you can cooperate with us and supervise each other. Don't let anyone secretly hide a mobile phone and call those pirates. We promise." Chow Hui loudly said, "This? Sir, may I ask who you are? Are you from the government?" "That's right. We're from the government." Tan Xiu nodded. "We received the order from the highest officer in Saipan to go to the Nonagon Bulwark to annihilate the pirates." When the hundreds of tourists heard that, their hearts that were hanging in the air were finally relieved. It was precisely because of this that they began to supervise each other. Anyone who dared to secretly make a phone call would be discovered by the people around them. Suddenly, a thin youth in the crowd stood up and shouted, "I want to go to the toilet. I have diarrhea." "Take him." Tan Xiu coldly snorted. Immediately, two members of Sacred Flame who were the closest to him pounced on the youth like wolves and tigers and directly captured him. "What are you doing?" "I just want to go to the toilet." "Didn't you say that you represent the government? Why do you want to capture me?" The youth angrily shouted. "We've been sailing for more than 2 hours, yet you say you have diarrhea?" Tan Xiu sneered. "You should have been unable to stand it if you had diarrhea. That's why I can tell that you're a pirate, a bad guy lurking among the tourists." "I'm not," roared the youth as he struggled. "Search him," ordered Tan Xiu. After a while, the two members of Sacred Flame found a pistol on the youth and a dagger on the leggings inside his trousers. The youth's face turned ashen after the murder weapon was found. He felt as though all his strength was sucked away in an instant. He would have collapsed to the ground if it weren't for the two members of Sacred Flame holding him. "There should be more than one pirate among you," sneered Tan Xiu. "You'll face a body search later. Anyone found with a murder weapon will be executed as a pirate." Just as his voice faded away, the three youths jumped from the corners of the crowd and then quickly ran toward the nearest passage. They wanted to escape from this living room. They knew where the speedboat was, so they could escape. Puff! The members of Sacred Flame were extremely fast and directly killed the three youths in just a few seconds. Nonagon Bulwark. The first island was called the Sun Island. This island was also a very famous tourist attraction, but there weren't many tourists here. There were only about 1,000 residents on the entire sunny island, but Tan Xiu was well aware that these people were pirates and their relatives. They usually lived like ordinary people, but this facade was just a cover for the other 8 islands. The next day, in the evening, as the liner approached Sunny Island, a Tang sect disciple in the cockpit quickly came to Tan Xiu's side and reported, "The other party sent a flag signal and we got a reply from the pirates. But it seems that they've been deceived. The islanders on the island are already prepared. Since they've been exposed, let's kill them directly," said Tan Xiu indifferently. Kill all the islanders on the sunny island, including their relatives. Understood. The Tang sect disciple nodded respectfully. Karen, who was standing at the side, hesitated. Isn't this too cruel, Mr. Tang? Those pirates deserve to die, but their relatives are innocent, no? Besides, most of them are ordinary people. If we kill them, won't it? Tan Xiao interrupted her indifferently and said in a deep voice, they're all pirates, so they deserve to die. The relatives of those pirates are also helping the evildoer. Also, can you guarantee that their relatives aren't involved in this? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.